Hello and welcome to the Boise State Gampan's Esports Arena. We're here today for a matchup against Boise State and Simon Fraser in the Collegiate Star League tournament. And this was a regular season matchup, League of Legends, with more than $25,000 in scholarships on the line. I will be your host, Lexi, and joining me on the desk today is Lisa Jolly Majas and Daniel Lovely. Let me start you with this question. Coming from someone who has actually never played League before, what can I expect today?
You can expect probably a lot less excitement than you would if Cheesy were currently on the desk, but you'll expect a lot of good information because we're more the analysts here, you know? We're going to get a lot of analytical gameplay and a lot of really cool stuff considering it's the beginning of the season. We have a lot of broken champions, a lot of new items and things like that to work with, and we're going to cover all that information as we get into it.
Yeah, for our folks at home, like the preseason dropped while we were out enjoying our Christmas break, doing our promos, mourning over our drop to Bronze 3. But overall, things that you can expect. Conqueror was changed, doesn't do true damage anymore. The dragons are such a huge impact on the map. It's very much a jungler-focused meta, jungle and bot lane. And now we go into picks and bans. Kled and Mordekaiser banned away by Boise State. Boindewoo. On the other side, Yasuo and Shyvana are the bans for Simon Fraser.
And it does look like Boise State will be starting on the red side there today. We usually give, well, actually it's CSL, so there's generally some sort of coin flip or deciding factor there. Akali is going to be the final one in the first phase of bans here. So Lexi, we have 5 bans on either side and then the 5 picks going back and forth, just kind of. This is the pick ban phase, as we like to call it here. And Leona, a very aggressive and a very, very good tanky support right now being banned out there as the final one from Boise State. And an immediate lock-in onto Lucian.
Lucian, very powerful early game champion, puts a lot of damage out in those early game matchups with the ability to proc his passive multiple times over the course of a short team fight. Very bursty, very bully champion. So it definitely speaks to the want for aggression in that bottom lane.
For sure, and there are several responses here right now. A lot of other, I was literally just going to say Caitlyn. Misfortune is another one that is incredibly powerful right now. Lucian can do a few dashes though, things like her ultimate not as effective as Ace in the Hole that we get from Caitlyn, which is that direct shot, and Lucian in particular can't really do much about that. He doesn't have any shielding, he does have the escapability of a dash, but again, Ace in the Hole is going to be hit anyway. So a Jarvan immediately selected there as well, can't get dopamine on that one. And now Simon Fraser is going to take a moment or two to kind of consider what they're looking at here.
So Jarvan definitely gives you that early game pressure, which is important in this meta. But Olaf is still on the table, and Boise State had a lot of trouble with that particular pick last night. Maybe they've come up with a counterplay, but they've left it up, and now it's going to be taken off the board by Simon Fraser. Very powerful pick in this season.
And good into the Jarvan as well. He's very aggressive. You're going to expect a lot of early aggression from both of these champions, and that's going to make things heavily swayed in terms of laning phase and pressure and priorities in those lanes there. Braum is going to be the follow-up with Lucian in the bottom lane, and Senna. I was going to mention Senna has kind of made a comeback. When she first came out, she was very, very good. They nerfed her to crap because people were playing her in the ADC role, and it was just too good. And now she has been buffed up again, so offering quite a bit of range here, quite a bit of poke, and a good priority it looks like we're going to see from this bottom side on Boise State.
So Gangplank banned away, very powerful late game carry, who normally struggles in the early game, but has the ability to affect from across the map, so is in fact able to influence that bot lane matchup very heavily. Ornn going to be the ban away from Simon Fraser. We've seen Woojin absolutely destroy people with that pick, and he's very strong this season right now. If you are able to play Ornn in your solo queue in top lane, I highly recommend him. Just for the amount of power that he gives your team, the ability to engage, and he's just such a strong laner right now.
And a lot of the compositional matchups, that's another thing that this season is already so heavy into. Why you are picking the champions that you're picking, not just because they're strong, but because they offer some sort of synergy there to the team comp, and that synergy is just so much more enhanced now. You have certain abilities that stack on top of each other, or certain CC chains that will act together, and that can be devastating if you have certain champions on your team there. The final bans being picked out, Renekton and Gangplank is the two final ones. Incredibly strong champs. Taking a look at that as well, you got a Pantheon jungle, potentially top, and Kled, a top laner generally. So a lot of top priority here coming from Boise State on the bans there. Camille is going to be the selection though, because they do have to first pick that lane, meaning the counter is in the hands of Simon Fraser.
The upside, though, is that Boise State leaves their middle lane open for whatever counter pick that they want, which will give them a lot of influence over where they go on the map. So we've got two more champions here to be picked in. Varus being hovered, fairly safe mid laner with the ability to poke and just sit on your tower, so they are going to lock that in. Does have the ability to push in those waves fairly easily with his Q, with his auto attacks, procs it very easily. And Fiora and Kennen, maybe Kennen. We've seen Kennen be very effective in many players' hands. Looks like they're hovering through. It could be Garen.
The Aurelia is also, I mean, a great choice right now. You are looking into the Camille, so you kind of have to factor in a potential counter pick there. The Kennen is going to be the lock in there, a good one to prevent Camille from being able to hook shot and heavy engage and get down her ultimatum later on in the game. However, I mean, all of the tank is going to be in that jungle and in that Braum. So you've got very, very squishy top, mid, and ADC. Two of those generally the case. So a lot of focus is going to have to be put there onto keeping that cannon alive from potential ganks from that Jarvan.
Echo going to be the final pickup for Boise State. I think it's a very powerful champion this season, especially if the Cloud Drake happens to be the dragon, because you're able to get that cooldown reduction on his ultimate so low and very quickly be able to regenerate all your health.
All right, so we're going to go into the matchup. This is Boise State playing against Simon Fraser in League of Legends tonight, and I am so excited to see this.
Oh, I'm stoked as well. We've played Simon Fraser quite a bit in all games that we've done here. So, you know, we like to say they're rivalries just against teams that we've played a lot, whether we've won a lot or lost a lot. That makes a rivalry for us. So Simon Fraser, one that we see pretty consistently here, and a good way to kick this off. Day one for me. This is my first day of the season here. So I don't want to say I'm more excited than you because I don't want to one-up you, Lexi, but I probably am.
I'm probably a mix of like very excited, but also it is my first everything. So
that is a good point. Hey, you're doing great up here though, and actually we've got some more things to hover here. Doc's keys to the game.
All right, so keys to the game are brought to you by Boise State University. At Boise State, you can choose from more than 200 areas of study. You'll have the chance to combine minors, certificates, internships, hands-on research, work opportunities, and more to make your educational experience unique. Visit boisestate.edu for more info.
And this is not versus Utah State, I'm assuming there. That is Simon Fraser pre-fight. Prioritization is up there. And that is going to be setting up before those fights. Coordinate, pull, and punch. So just really maintaining the aggression there. Stabilize, 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 and wall and maul. There's no Kiana in this game, so it's not going to be too crazy on the wall mauling. But lots of fights along the walls and taking advantage, I'm sure, of dragon changes.
Absolutely. The dragon changes are so important in this current meta because of just how much power they grant your team. You go for your first dragon and you get this huge power spike, especially depending on what dragon it is. If we see an Infernal Drake, that's a huge amount of ability power and attack damage that you're getting across the team. And for certain champions, that can be even bigger. On the other hand, if you're a tank champion, the Earth Dragon is such an important item, important dragon to have for your tanky champion team.
Okay, so I got to ask you this question. How will we know if we're doing well early on?
So because of the compositions I think that we have here on these teams, Boise State is going to need to have a lot of pressure. So if we as a team, Boise State, is doing well, you're going to see a lot of pressure on those towers early on, and that means that the vision pressure is going to be high and really a lot of focus around that dragon there. That's at least what I expect to see in the first few minutes.
I also agree. I think that the bot side of the map, bottom and middle, are where we're going to see most of the pressure. Honestly, throughout the rest of the season, for the most part, Jarvan especially is able to gank very early. So if we see Jarvan getting that pressure early, either on the bot side, forcing out flashes, or even managing to pick up an elimination in either of those lanes, we could see Boise State manage to push on through that early game and snowball into the late.
And I will say, though, the same can be expected from the composition on the other side. Olaf really early on, so we're going to know who's doing well just based on who has those features that we just mentioned.
Okay, so are these both two kinds of teams with the setup and who they're playing right now are like, they're both early game, so we can expect a lot to happen within the first bit?
I would think so, yes. And in particular, the jungles being as early game as they are, and then those carry lanes, a Kennen up in the top lane. You've got a Lucian as well as the Lucian and the Braum, who definitely want to try to get pressure because Braum doesn't offer as much of that lane priority to the Lucian if they have a clear lane. So jungles are going to be huge, and this could go either way. Normally, we pick beforehand who we think is going to take this one. I think the first 5 minutes not are going to determine, but it's going to be a huge determining factor.
If there's one lane I'm really concerned about, it is that top lane. While Wujin, we have seen him play Camille in the past, and it is a great champion, it really struggles against the Kennen, not only because it's a ranged versus melee matchup, but because Kennen has both AD and AP scaling in his kit, so her passive only protects from so much of Kennen's output.
Something like the GP that they actually banned away would probably have ended up working out better for them, but that was just a good move, I think, on Simon Fraser, prioritizing counter picks and forcing Boise State to make early picks too, so they're already playing the mind games. And I think we've got just, a couple minutes before we're hopping into this game. You mentioned you are most worried about the top lane. I do also want to say, as much as I love Echo here, and we are going to jump in, as much as I love Echo, and Red Hots has all the confidence in the world here. Unless that's swapped, it is the Lucian going in the mid. No, it can't be. That's has teleport. That's got to be swapped.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that's swapped. Lucian Braum is a very powerful bot lane. If Braum manages to land a Q or even just an auto attack onto a target, Lucian can very quickly proc that down using his own passive, giving them a stun, giving them a huge advantage in that lane. It's because of the Braum that they're able to invade here very safely. If they wanted to, if they were to find someone out, they could very quickly burst them down with that combination.
Speaking of burst, though, Gimmick and Dean on the Caitlyn Senna. I think before the last champion that came out before we stopped, I believe, was Kiana. So we have had two champions, technically, that have come out now, the Senna and then the Set very, very recently here. So
I think you're forgetting about Aphelios, who we did see last night, but he is such a
I did because I blocked him out of my memory. I just blocked him away because, man, when he first came out, and he has been nerfed quite a bit, but when he first came out, he was absolutely devastating. And same can be said about Senna. I mentioned them pulling her into the ADC role.
So it is going to be Lucian mid. I suppose that teleport in the bot lane isn't completely uncommon. It's not a highly prioritized thing, especially since most of the action is going to be focused around the bot lane, but maybe he wants the ability to very quickly get back into lane after being pushed away.
Already we can see that Jarvan making his way into the mid lane. That's going to push Lucian down and give a little bit of prioritization to Echo there. I really do think as well maybe Varus into the Echo would have been a better matchup there for Lucian, who has to get in much closer, and you don't want to get close to Echo because he does so much burst damage and then can escape from that fight very, very easily, and that could lead to a first blood for Boise State there in the middle lane. The good Q shot is going to land that first concussive blow onto Gimmick, but not enough range coming from this bottom lane on Simon Fraser for them to do much.
Braum's had a hard time in this new season, due in part to the change of the support items. So, yes, we really were expecting Varus mid. Varus mid was a very common thing for a very long time. And honestly, the Lucian Braum combination just sort of tells you, you want to go with that in your bot lane. Instead, it's going to be the Varus. It's possible that they were planning on running the Lucian bot and decided to switch it when they saw that they were going into such a long-range poke matchup. Varus has a much safer lane in this situation, so I could definitely see it going either way.
And a good poke back and forth already in this mid lane between those two. Boise State, though, does have pressure in the bottom lane, like we were talking about when you asked earlier, Lexi, regarding how we kind of know any of these lanes are doing well. Gold, not much of a change. We can say a slight favor, actually, in Simon Fraser's turn right now. Some good sneaky moves there in the middle lane. Shinyu definitely knows what he's doing on this mid Lucian. He's playing Lucian not like you would an ADC. He's being very aggressive, but he is also at the same time watching those bushes and keeping an eye on where vision might be on their side.
Junglers still not spotted out by either side, wandering through. We actually see Olaf looking to invade here, maybe going to find out some clubs for himself. Little trade in the top lane. Stun comes out, but Camille's going to be right and safe. It's going to be a very slow early game if things keep up, but I do see Jarvan moving towards the bottom side of the map.
It could be slow, though. He's moving down, and we've got that Olaf now moving up, and that Camille is low. Kennen is at almost 100% health up there. Jarvan can only do so much when that bottom lane is pushed for Boise State. No, it looks like Olaf is not going to make a super aggressive move. He's going to continue to check out red side jungle, sees that the red buff has in fact been taken. I mean, at that point in the game, neither buff really should be back up at this point, but he is going to go over to those Raptors and steal a little bit more from Boise State.
So Boise State right now does have a great vision advantage. Can't Get Dopamine has managed to secure both scuttles, giving vision around both Red Herald and Dragon. A lot of poke damage there coming out onto Red Hot. Press the attack doing a lot of damage there, but he's going to be able to walk away fairly safely. Doesn't have any more corrupting potions though, so he might have to back away.
And they both do have Ignite currently, so the Doran's Blade there is going to help Lucian out in this instance, and really it's whoever decides to make that hard engage and throw down the Ignite, likely going to get that first blood. And I would say it looks like it's going to be taking place there in the mid lane with all the pressure from the jungles and from these laners. We know how aggressive Red Hots is. Obviously, this Lucian has to be just as, if not more aggressive than Red Hots as a player to oppose that Echo.
Looking across, Simon Fraser does have a slight gold advantage, 0.4k gold. Now we're starting to look at the items. It looks like it's going to be the Warrior enchantment for that Olaf. So he's maybe looking to deal additional damage, or it's possible that the Tiamat. You never know sometimes. Olaf has the ability to take several different approaches in the early game because he sustains so well. We do see the Hextech Revolver coming out for Echo in the mid lane, so Red Hot is going to get some extra burst whenever he manages to land an ability. While Shiny U, that Lucian, is going to pick up a Vamp Scepter, and that's going to continue to give him more sustain so he can continue to be healthy and keep up the pressure in that middle lane.
And the bottom lane there, the reason we were talking about Lucian being good, there was a huge reason for it. We saw actually a fight. Senna got the double stun under their own tower, dealing great damage, and I believe it was Gimmick that had 3 stacks of concussive blows on him, but no range there from the Varus. Unfortunately, was too far back under tower. Some good back and forth again now in the mid lane. But these fights are so aggressive. These teams are aggressive. Both of these teams, both Simon Fraser and Boise State, know exactly what Riot wants to do with this new setup, with this new season here. And they want the early aggression, they want early kills, and both of these teams are trying real hard to take that for themselves.
Teams are looking across the map, trying to find some way to outposition each other, but neither of them is able to make a big move. We haven't seen any big ganks from either jungler. They're just sort of farming, trying to get ahead. Neither of them is really able to find an opening in this lane just because of the way they're pushed and the sorts of champions that are in there. It's hard to gank an Echo, it's hard to gank a Lucian. A good attempt to go in there by Woojin, trying to find Aleph, or
Just gonna mention, looking at the bottom lane there, I believe that went over to the Lucian for mid. A very generous Olaf. No, actually, he took it himself. They did invade once again, though. That's 2 members of Simon Fraser very deep into the red side jungle. They were able to claim a buff. Can't Get Dopamine is on the other side, so he did manage to pick something up off of it. And look at all of the vision around this Dragon Pit right now. Boise State is heavily prioritizing it. A deep Jarvan in the jungle here is either going to go for a gank or they're going to go for the Dragon.
There is some priority here. Now Echo is in the range, manages to land a stun onto one. Gonna get stunned up by the Braum. Ults back. Here comes the Flag and Dragon. Boots thrown into the team fight, but it looks like Culling is going to come out. Can't Get Dopamine taking a lot of damage. First blood goes over to Simon Fraser with that piercing arrow.
A lot of summoner spells there burned on the side of Simon Fraser, but it was worth it because they were able to pick up that first blood after so many fights, after so much aggression. 8 minutes about was when they were finally able to find that for themselves, and that's going to bump up their gold lead to about 1K at the moment. We'll see if they're able to take anything else off of this. Obviously, Dragon priority is going to be huge, but they don't want to let that bottom lane push in too hard. And Lucian, once again, is deep jungle, just helping out his fellow ADC, or his jungler there. We'll take another break down here. We can see the flash away from the Braum, the culling coming out from Shiny U on this one. Just able to hit with the Varus Q at the very, very end to pick up that first blood. So it's the combination of those two ADCs that really led to all of that damage. Now we're jumping back in. The ultimate coming out from the cannon is going to give him another elimination there. 1-0-0 and 2-0 overall right now in Simon Fraser's favor.
Teleport used, but they managed to pick up an elimination, and now Boise State has no priority over that dragon pit. Simon Fraser, though, not actually doing anything to take that dragon, just moving off, backing up, using the gold they've earned to buy some new items, and as a result, Boise State still has a little bit of control, but it looks like now they're going to go for it. They've got 3 members down here, so they do have the ability to clear this out. Boise State doesn't have enough people in the area in order to be able to contest this dragon.
They do have the teleport, and they do have a couple members moving down, but definitely not worth attempting that. I'm surprised Simon Fraser waited as long as they did, because multiple times they had victorious fights towards that bottom side, even right next to the dragon pit, but they decided instead to focus on keeping their lanes from being pushed too hard because of the priorities generally being in Boise State's favor. So it ended up working out quite well for them, and now almost a 2K, just over a 2K, 2.5K, 1.5K gold lead. My goodness, see, this is what winter break does to you.
So when you say the gold lead, how much does that have an impact on the game?
So
yeah, go ahead.
So gold is where you get all of your items, and when you have, of course, more items, you have more stats. You're just a more powerful character. And when you hit certain points in the game, if you have enough gold, you can have these huge power spikes in accordance with your items. For example, if we were seeing a Corki here, the point at which he gets Trinity Force is a huge power spike for him in that middle game. So you want to try and get to that point as quickly as we can. Now we're having a little skirmish in the mid lane. Looks like Red Hot is going to walk away just fine as teams are trading back and forth trying to find an advantage. Boise State is down in gold. That doesn't mean they're down and out, because items aren't everything.
I also do want to commend Woojin for how much pressure he has seen, at least towards the jungle in his top side. The couple of appearances that we've seen from Olaf, he's still doing very well in terms of CS. And a lot of plates going down now, a couple tower shots, just one hitting Dean there. Echo did come down to try to make an appearance, try to say something with this, but just too much pressure in that bottom lane meant he was not able to get a gank. And we can see even more roam, so much roam coming from this Lucian throughout the entirety so far of the 11 minutes and 20 seconds that we have seen.
Hextech Proto Belt picked up by Red Hots in the mid lane. That's going to give him some additional ability to move around the battlefield, some additional burst damage on top of what he is already doing. So fantastic item for Echo. Looks like the Rift Herald is going to be started up by Simon Fraser, and Boise State is nowhere in sight.
They have no vision at all on that side of the map, in fact. They've known Lucian has been wandering up that way with Olaf many, many times. And it really hasn't even led to enough pressure in that mid lane there. This is going to be a free Rift Herald for Simon Fraser. 0 contest from Boise State. 2 ultimates coming down in the bottom lane. Can't get Dopamine. He's going to back this one up. And Dean is going to pick up the elimination here. A couple concussive blow stacks on Can't Get Dopamine. But Red Hot takes the tower aggression. A stopwatch from the Braum is not going to give him enough. Can't Get Dopamine is going to go down. Almost saved himself there. But Braum picking up that elimination. So 2 supports, both getting a kill.
That was a 5 versus 2 underneath the tower. Boise State not quite juggling the tower aggro quite well enough. Does end up losing a member to it, but they do take control of that bottom lane. They do take the first tower as a result, clearing it just before the Rift Herald slammed in. And Rift Herald, thankfully, didn't even manage to take anything.
Yeah, you're right. That aggro was definitely not wanting to go towards Dopamine, as he has a lower amount of health there. A really good eye from Red Hots as well in that fight on recognizing the moment that he took aggro. There's the ultimate coming out from both the Olaf and Woojin. Wujin's going to back out of this one just a bit, so not really a wasted ultimate on either side, but nothing really gained out of that one. A flash in from Can't Get Dopamine, slicing Maelstrom coming out, and so much damage means Ricky is going to get that one. The hook shot over the wall leads to Wujin escaping, and now a flash in, and a couple tower shots are going to give Elif another elimination for himself. 2-0-1. He's got a bounty on his head. Now a great stun from Dean, though, on the follow-up here. A flash in from Gimmick. He's going to throw the Q. He does not have AC in the hole there. And there's a flash in from Dean as well. So many flashes expended on that, but a good back and forth means that both teams got something.
So an initial engage from the Olaf, trying to engage onto that Camille, was a great disengage from Boise State. But then we had more aggression come in from Can't Get Dopamine, and that ended up costing Boise State. But they were able to get their bottom lane into position, were able to pick something up. Now Can't Get Dopamine is trapped under tower with 2 in a very dangerous situation, is going to go down to the Varus, but he does trap them underneath the tower as the turret plating falls.
Was not able to get an elimination with that, though. Just too much pressure on that lane. The minions were readily available to take tower shots where necessary there. Wujin is down in the bottom lane, going to try to at least put a little bit of pressure back in response. And Gimmick and Dean, having navigated their way to the top, were able to get a tower down. So 2 towers in favor of Boise State. Simon Fraser did manage to pick up a few plates, though, before that plating went down. Boise State, however, managed to grab a lot on that, and the culling is going to come out. And it turned into a defensive culling there, and at the end, because he thought that was a 1v1 against Red Hots, little did he know Dean and Gimmick were right around the corner.
Little rat-a-tat and run away, trying to get some space between himself and the Boise State bot lane. But Olaf has found someone in the bush. Gimmick is forced to run away, and teleport's coming through. Ultimate comes down from Senna, and now unstoppable. Dean is caught out. There's nowhere for him to go.
That was a great move by the Olaf. It was a risky one, but good communication there. The second that teleport came through, Boise State realized that there was nothing that they could do in that one. And 4 members now moving down towards this Cloud Drake, it looks like. They're going to take even more from Boise State's jungle, as the blue is going to be handed over to the Kennen here. Well, maybe not. Nope, he's got the red already. He doesn't need the blue. Lucian's going to take that blue team, taking that dragon, and that is going to be the second in favor of them, meaning the mountains shall rise. And that is going to give Simon Fraser even more opportunity to do what they just did there and catch Boise State off guard around some of those bushes.
So there is something important to note, is that the Earth Dragon spawns additional structures, additional walls across the map, and that's going to be really useful for this Camille. The downside, of course, is the fact that the dragons are going to be armor and magic resist boosters. So that's going to be great for Can't Get Dopamine, but the rest of Boise State is primarily attack damage focused. So unless they're going to try and add more tank items into their build, those dragons aren't going to benefit them as much. And meanwhile, Wujin not able to do anything against this cannon. The slicing Maelstrom slicing through his health bar.
And that red buff, as mentioned before, is on the cannon, so he's going to be dealing even more. Now sitting at a 450 gold bounty because he is 4-0-1 at the moment, and has found a bigger gap in CS between himself and this Camille. I had mentioned that Wujin was doing a very good job of maintaining that CS, and still is not incredibly far behind, but that's going to give Simon Fraser the boost that they need to get those couple of items that they have been wanting to really push this over the edge in terms of favor of these fights.
Boise State really needs to find a way back into this game. Dragons are not going to provide them as much benefit as they would like, so much as just denying it away from Simon Fraser. They've been doing a great job of taking these towers, but unfortunately every time they take a tower it seems to come at a cost, either a tower of their own, a dragon, or multiple members of their own team.
And that is a huge cost for them at this point in the game. We're less than 20 minutes in still, and we're looking at about a 4K gold difference, which is pretty massive right now. And a lot can be done with that in the current meta, as items are just so powerful right now, in particular things like crit and lethality, which of course we're going to be seeing a lot of crit coming from both the Lucian and the Varus there. And another slicing Maelstrom as we get the Hex-Tech jump in. So much damage down. Nin Assassin is going to take down Can't Get Dopamine. Kugaya once again taking another elimination there. He's sitting at 2-1-5 as a Braum, which has got to be pretty satisfying there. And 3 1-1 means he has not taken all of that from the Varus. Those were actually defensive plays for the most part. So much aggression even coming from these defensive champions.
The engage was a little bit unfortunate there. Can't Get Dopamine was trying to get the Kennen with the Flag and Drag combination, not quite able to land it, and as a result, Kennen is free and open to unleash his entire load of abilities on top of 2 members. Boise State loses their jungler, Boise State loses their support, and now Boise State is losing the Rift Herald.
And they do have a little bit of vision for the first time, at least on this side, towards that pit. We're not going to see Shelly for very long, though. I can imagine they're going to drop her relatively quickly as they have pressure in quite a few lanes right now. We can see the Lucian going down bot to put some pressure down there. And a jump in Cataclysm from Can't Get Dopamine. He's going to flag and drag himself out of it, and there's an Ignite. Ricky going to take that one. The ultimatum coming down from Camille does not lead to much. Now the unstoppable Olaf is going in, finds Gimmick, who ults out. And there is the culling from Shimmy Yu, who manages to pick up Gimmick. That's a lot of members of Boise State sitting at a gray screen, and a lot of members of Simon Fraser now able to put pressure everywhere else on the map.
At this point, only 2 members of Boise State alive, although they are starting to spawn back in. Rift Herald summoned in the mid lane, going to put even more pressure on Boise State, who is now just shoved into their base. Here comes Shelly. She's going to smash into that tower, deals a lot of damage, takes a couple of hits. They're going to take that tower, and now there's an exposed inhibitor.
They get another charge off it. Boise State did not focus Shelly there. Definitely could have taken her down before that second charge went off, and that means that you're looking at a half-health inhibitor right off the bat.
On top of that, Boise State wasn't able to get any eliminations on the players as they were extended into the base there. So Boise State losing a lot of priority over that map. Dragon will be up very soon. It's going to be a Mountain Dragon, as we've previously discussed. It's going to be those for the rest of the game. But also, Baron is coming up very soon. In 3, 2, 1, Baron.
Ooh, whoa, that was... Oh, you were looking...
There's a timer at the top of the screen. So
it's
20
been
minutes.
A bit, okay?
20 minutes, Baron spawns. Baron is now
wow,
available.
That's magical. I do that. Oh, that's how I cast. All right. 14-4, though, is the kill spread that we're looking at. Now almost 7K is the gold difference as well. All of this in Simon Fraser's favor, as well as 2 towers now. And that was kind of the one thing that Boise State was holding on to for the early part of the game, was at least they had tower pressure and priority. Because of that, they were able to pick up a lot of plates, able to get themselves a lot of early towers, but nothing since those first 2, which went down probably at least 5 to 10 minutes ago here. And Simon Fraser knows they are controlling this map. They have been from the beginning. The Olaf, the Lucian, with the amount of roam that they have shown here, and the fact that Boise State never once did anything about it, means that they're going to continue doing that.
On top of that, Simon Fraser has such a strong team fight with their composition. They hit so many things in such a wide area. Things like the Glacial Fissure and the culling coming out, and the Slicing Maelstrom, which has been eating through the entirety of Boise State. And now Red Hot's caught out, caught through the slow, rooted down, stunned up, unable to do anything, just pinned in place. And just
that was a little bit of an overkill there, Brown. That was definitely not necessary. He ulted to get the 4th concussive blow stack onto the Echo, who that was his first death. So keep in mind in terms of CS and not falling behind too far in his lane. He does have an advantage in terms of the other players on his team. However, nobody has an advantage when you get a flash over the wall and a slicing maelstrom like that. There's going to be a Cataclysm on top of it. The culling coming out to try to take down Gimmick. A double kill going in favor of the Varus, and Shimmy Yu is going to pick up the 3rd one. That only leaves 2 members, or 1 member now of Boise State alive. Red Hot's almost back up after going down at the beginning of that fight. No relent coming from Simon Fraser, though, as they take down tower number 1. They're now going to focus here on tower number 2, and this looks like the end of the game here, at least the first one for Boise State.
Great game by Simon Fraser. Really played that map well and really knew what they were doing with their composition.
Absolutely. They never once let up pressure on Boise State. They recognized what was working, and they kept doing it. And we have to see now Boise State kind of adjust to that here in the following game.
All right, so we are still Boise State versus Simon Fraser University, and I have a question that I was wondering. So when the beginning of the match doesn't quite go as you'd planned, what kind of changes do you have to make when you're thinking about, I have to change everything that I thought was going to happen?
Oh, that's huge, especially when you build a composition around heavy early pressure, heavy early objectives. And I think one of the biggest things that might have gone wrong for Boise State is they had that early objective advantage. They weren't really able to get much off of it, and Simon Fraser got the eliminations, took over vision control there, and had Boise State maybe still tried to at least oppose the dragon, 2 dragons free, the Rift Herald free, 2 free in favor of Simon Fraser. So at that point, sticking together and vision is massive, and they kind of lost control of that.
I do think that one thing that was a big issue for Boise State was that they didn't really have the ability to team fight as well as Simon Fraser's team composition did. They had tools that could have enabled some great picks. I mean, between the Senna, the Jarvan, the Camille, they had great pick potential, but in order to really set up a pick composition, you have to be able to put pressure across the map to force the team apart so that you're not fighting as many members as once when you do a pick. And of course, you need to be strong enough to get the elimination instead of as far behind as Boise State were. Sometimes you just need to play safe and farm back and look for opportunities.
And, well, we'll see some adjustment to that.
So we're going to bring up the midterm progress report.
All right.
Sponsored by Boise State University.
Who put Comic Sans
What
on
do we
there?
think?
I'm like really angry at whoever did that. I'm not happy with my name being Comic Sans up there.
Sounds like somebody's going to have a bad time.
It's all right. I'm not on production. I don't get to control it. Whatever. I can be bad. All right. So this is the fun part where we get to grade our Boise State team. And this was a rough one, but I think Boise State played well against it. I think Simon Fraser just really knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they went hard with it. So let's give some grades here. Lexi, we'll start with Glovely, all right? Starting with the draft, how do you feel Boise State did?
I didn't think that Boise State had a bad draft, but I don't think they really had a particularly strong late game strategy in mind. So I'm going to give them a C.
I was gonna say B- for basically the same reasons. I mean, it seems really good. Just they probably could have countered a bit better.
And I'm going to say that everybody tried their best, and I wasn't quite sure what was happening, so I give them an A.
A smiley face from Lexi.
And you know what? I also give them an A for vision control.
All right. I like that. Early on, okay, so I will say I'll respond to, I guess we'll go zigzag across this. I would say that vision control, I'm going to give them a B+ because the early part of the game was really, really effective for them. They just kind of lost the late game, but I think that's the Olaf pressure.
I also agree. I'm also going to give them a B+. They had great vision on the map. They just weren't able to keep it up throughout the rest of the game, and it didn't cost them anything.
And this is probably where it's going to get roughest for me in terms of objective control, because there really was no vision when Simon Fraser had advantage on that. So we'll start with you, Glovely, on that side.
I think that Boise State did a great job putting out tower pressure, and they were able to get down those towers very early and had very good control over those. But they ended up losing out on so many other objectives. I can't give them anything better than a C-.
I'm going to go with just with a C. That's probably my worst, but again, really, it was late game. They just had no vision, no control.
And I'm going to continue to be the really cool sub-teacher, and you get an A.
I love it. Okay, second to last now, time management. I think both teams did quite well with this one. Boise State really just kind of recognized where they were floundering, so I'd say the B+ is going to be kind of consistent across the board for this one. Lexi, already they don't even need to hear it. They're like, okay, we got the A. We got the A there. What do you think, Lovely?
I'm going to agree. B+. I think Boise State did a great job using what time they have. There was no idling around awkwardly between lanes. They were always moving to get something, but they weren't able to really get a whole lot out of what they did go for.
And the final one's going to be team fights. I'm going to put myself down again for a B+, pretty much a B+ average, I would say, across the board here. They did have some really good engages, but with the composition of Simon Fraser, there wasn't much they could do.
Yeah, Boise State didn't really have any opportunities, and I think that they tried to take team fights that they weren't necessarily able to take. They did manage to back away from a few that were detrimental, so I'm going to just give them a straight B.
All right.
And you know what? I'm going to continue being the cool teacher because they were a great team. They worked together, and they had fun, and that's what matters. So how about a little smile on there?
Give him a little smiley sticker, you get a little star sticker kind
Gold
of thing.
star, everybody.
I'm the cool teacher that buys the cool stickers.
Oh, yeah. Well, now you're going to have to get them because now I want stickers.
I will get stickers. Oh, yeah. It'll happen.
All right, I think we're going to maybe hop into a couple replays. Yeah, just taking a quick look. We remember this fight around the Dragon Pit, the good move. That actually forced a flash out of the Braum. The Cullen came out, and just a great Varus piercing arrow there to pick up the first blood. And going over to a Varus definitely made things difficult for Boise State later on.
And when your health is low like that, is it more beneficial to get yourself out of there? Or if you can take someone down with you, is that what you should choose?
Early on, I mean, if you're positive you can take them down, it's good to take them with you if you know you're going to go down. But early on, you take so much damage from people like Lucian and Varus, so having them on the other side, usually if you're getting engaged on, it's best to try to escape.
And it wasn't like he was in a bad position. He was there because of the pressure that came in from the Lucian, from getting the culling out and doing so much damage. Unfortunately, just at the very tip of the lollipop skill shot there.
Yeah, and it does so much damage early on. Those are the ones, if you've got a Lucian and a Varus, one of them's going to have to go down relatively early. The problem was the Kennen was putting a lot of pressure in that top lane, and Woojin was doing very, very well. And so I think they wanted to kind of keep it going that direction.
All right, and if you're just joining us, it's Boise State versus Simon Fraser, and we're playing League of Legends.
League of Legos. Getting them some more League of Legos.
League of Legos.
All right. So in terms of what should come up in the next pick ban phase, Olaf had better be banned. I was not able to really watch the games last night. You mentioned that Olaf caused problems. I know in the past seasons, even when he was nerfed or buffed or whatever, Boise State has always had issues with Olaf, and if they pick it up for themselves, I think that would be very effective. If not, ban it out.
Now, I think the biggest issue is the fact that Can't Get Dopamine is not a jungle player. He is filling in this week. He's doing a great job, given that he is an ADC player and being forced to play these junglers, these very tanky members, instead of something like, say, a Graves. But I think it's also causing problems for the team because he's not used to that role, and it's really causing issues. I don't know if he has Olaf in his champion pool, so it might be better for Boise State to just ban it away for all the power that it has. Mordekaiser going to be the first ban.
Keep getting confused with the new Mordekaiser and the new Pantheon icon. They all look the same now. Looks like Shyvana is once again going to be banned out here, and the first one there, Kled. So it looks like Boise State so far going the same route. Please ban Olaf. Please be third Olaf. A Yasuo being banned out. We know that's one of Red Hot's, if not his favorite champion in the game here. So a bit more of a target, realizing he was so aggressive and did very, very well in that middle lane there. And thank goodness you guys listened. They listened to everyone. Olaf is just not something that you want to mess with right now. With that much early potential into late game steamroll, it's just not worth it.
So is that going to improve their grade?
Almost
in pick bans, yes. I mean, I didn't give a bad grade for pick bans. You know, it seemed like a good composition, but that is absolutely going to help them out. I mean, that's unless they just destroy the rest of this, that alone is enough for me to give you an A because they listened. Not often. Not that they can hear me, but not often does my telepathy actually make it back there. So I'm pretty proud of that one. There is an Akali ban, so 2 bans there against Red Hots, and Woojin is going to pick up that Caitlyn for Gimmick in the bottom lane, and I can safely say that Caitlyn is going in the bottom lane.
I mean, you never know. I mean, we have been
Don't
seeing
do
AD
that
carries.
to me.
We've been seeing AD carries at a lot of crazy positions. Last night, we saw Tristana top lane into Nautilus. We've seen this Lucian. It's probably going. It's possibly going towards the mid lane again. It looks like they're going to favor that Braum. Lucian Braum again. Powerful combination in the bot lane, but they have the ability to flex.
Caitlyn is one that I almost never, I don't know if I've seen a Caitlyn in any, maybe like seasons ago in the mid lane or in the top lane or something, but she's one of those that really benefits from the help of a support, and she needs just a little bit of time. She's got the range, she's got the great poke, but you really want somebody to kind of front line for you, somebody to take the aggression so you sit back and do your Caitlyn thing. And Nunu and Willump are going to be the lock-ins here, another aggressive engager, and Senna is once more going to be locked in. It looks like Dean has found a new favorite.
Indeed, and I do think that the Nunu and Willump is a great pick. It allows you to jungle very quickly and safely, which Great for not only experienced junglers, but also just great to have that nice bulky tank line. You're able to zone a whole lot using the snowballs, using the absolute zero. And it looks like Varus is going to be the pickup for the other side, so they do have the ability to flex in that bot and mid lane.
And it clearly was not a scary enough combination for them, as we saw that the Mordekaiser and the Kled were the ones that were instantly banned out, probably due to some research there onto Simon Fraser's positioning. And Ornn is going to be a ban out there as well, just something that they don't want to see in the top lane. We know how well Woojin does on Ornn, and he is very effective right now. A ban on the Fiora, who is also just incredibly strong right now. She is very hard to counter and very easily counters a lot of champions there. The final one for Simon Fraser is going to be a Cho'Gath, and Boise State once again putting quite a bit of ban pressure onto that top lane.
So unfortunately, those are two very powerful tanks in the hands of Boise State, but they're going to be pushed away. Darius is going to be the final ban. A champion that's great at snowballing once he gets ahead. That Kennen, though, left up on the board, and Slicing Maelstrom did a whole lot to Boise State's lineup.
Not enough to scare him, apparently. I would like to see why. I'm not sure. Did you guys see a Shyvana last night?
Yes, actually that is something that we've seen out of Can't Get Dopamine. It is one of the junglers he runs. Trundle is going to be the pickup for Simon Fraser. Great at stealing away tank stats, so they're going to take advantage of that Nunu to subjugate him beneath Trundle's rule. Echo looks like it's being hovered, might actually be picked, might be swapped off to something else in the end. We saw it in the last game. It wasn't a bad pick, but it did struggle. Victor actually now being hovered, and it's going to be locked in. So mid-range mage brings more crowd control, more area of effect damage, and that's going to be a lot helpful for Nunu and Willump, and also great at being able to reposition himself in team fights with the extra movement speed he gets with his Q.
Yeah, and I do like the combination. You know, you've got the Senna lockdown, which you can anticipate and therefore lead the snowball for the Nunu too. And that's a lot of CC that somebody like the Victor and the Caitlyn can really take advantage of. Throw a trap down underneath them while they're rooted or stunned or what have you popped up. Malphite's going to offer even more of that. I love the engage. I love the hard CC. I'm already loving this composition here coming out from Boise State. However, on the side of Simon Fraser, we know 3 out of those 4 were played last game, and they were all very, very scary. And this final pick is going to be Kennen. That means 4 out of the 5 are the exact same composition, the only one not being the Olaf, which Boise State decided to ban. A very good move by them. But my goodness, I think Boise State has a lot more opportunity here to do what they want to. And instead of making those picks, now it is heavy full team fight engages. And that way, if they do get turned on, they have some sort of response.
Now, we have seen Malphite be used by Woojin to great effect. We've seen him take down champions that we thought were hard counters in a lot of scenarios. And Malphite is still a very strong champion in the current meta. He's certainly caused problems for me in my solo queue games.
Yes, he's a bully. He's definitely one of those bullies, similar to the Olaf style. You know, you're always going to expect pressure from him. You're always going to expect it to be annoying. and if you can shut him down early, that is the nice thing. Malphite does get shut down. It's not as though he's able to continue on through.
So as far as matchup, are we looking at the same kind of approach as last time, or how has Boise State changed their approach?
How about you answer first, Glove? I've been taking these.
Well, definitely in the previous match, there was a lot of focusing around team fighting for Simon Fraser. Boise State also had a lot of early game pressure. I don't think that they're going to have as much early game pressure. I think that they're going to want to try and hit that mid game, which is where a lot of their champions hit a big power spike.
So we're going to go into keys to the game. You want to go over that?
Oh, I can do that. This is versus Simon Fraser. Draft to enable mid and jungle. So they are focusing on red hots, as we could see the opposing team was as well. Winning the laning phase. They had some good pressure last time, but they did not have first dragon. They did have first tower, however, the first 2. So Boise State can stick with that in objectives before spawn. So really farther objectives and making sure that you get something when you kill an opponent before they're actually able to get back in. And objectives, I think that is also specifying getting vision and focusing towards objectives before they actually appear.
So the keys to the game are brought to you by Boise State University. At Boise State, you can choose more than 200 areas of study. You'll have the chance to combine minors, certificates, internships, hands-on research, work opportunities, and more. To make your educational experience unique, visit boisestate.edu to get more info.
I approve that message. All right. So we're looking at a better overall composition, at least in our eyes, of how Boise State will approach this one. Now, do you think, so Doc's keys to the game obviously said focusing mid and jungle, but based on that last game, do you think there's going to be more focus towards the top lane, or do you think they're going to continue to keep pressure on that bottom lane to get that Kate and Senna boosted and prevent Varus and Braum from getting fed?
I do think that they're going to continue to just let Woojin stay on his own, let him use that Malphite to lane. Definitely a bit of a better lane matchup for him than the previous one. Malphite at least has the regenerating shield, has a lot more inherent tankiness, so he's going to have a lot more ability to survive long-term against this Kennen. And of course, once he hits level 6, he's a much bigger kill threat than Kennen is because of his ability to jump into a huge enemy team and just knock them all up in the air and deal tons and tons of damage.
And I think that's definitely something we're going to have to not keep an eye out for, but wait for me to start yelling when that Wombo combo hits. If we get a Malphite ult or a snowball into a Malphite ult, and then you've got, the Senna stun on top of that. The Victor as well, just going to be doing a massive damage. At that point, he can just kind of circle his ult around wherever they're at and really not even have to focus on it much. So I'm very excited for the Wombo combo on that side. I am kind of worried about the Trundle, and obviously I'm not as worried as I would be if it was the Olaf, because I recommended the ban, and I'm glad that the ban went through, but it was a confident pick, and the fact that nothing else on that composition changed means that they want to keep it that way, and they got what they wanted.
Right, and I do think that the Trundle has the ability to cause a lot of problems for Boise State, particularly for Can't Get Dopamine, has the ability to steal those tank stats, has the ability to block off the snowball engages with the pillar, does a lot to sort of hold a team in an area which is where they want to fight. But Boise State has got a lot of area of effect crowd control, and I think that's going to be very crucial in these upcoming team fights.
So in these cases when you take Simon Fraser's approach and you don't fix what ain't broke, does that give them the advantage, or how kind of goes through your mind as you're Boise State trying to kind of resort yourself out?
It could go either way. It could give them the disadvantage in that Boise State knows kind of a strategy that they're going to go with it, but there's really, with who they chose, there's no other strategy. Kennen's going to do what Kennen does. It's kind of like a Mundo thing. They do what they please. They go where they please. But they do have the upper hand in that they know it works really, really well. So Boise State is going into this knowing that it could really go either way.
Additionally, you have that sort of morale going into the second game. You're like, I did really well with this. I played great. And that makes you feel better and makes you a lot more confident going into the game, as opposed to Boise State, who might be feeling a little shooken up as a result of that unfortunate first game.
I do think Red Hots, though, he has got quite a bit of fortitude in knowing that he performed very, very well. Same with Woojin up in the top. Not that anybody on Boise State really actually performed poorly. As rough as that game went, they played it all very well. I really do think that, a lot of the composition and the aggression that Simon Fraser had was due to that. But they have a lot more opportunity for later game pressure. As you mentioned, probably not as much early game. Can't Get Dopamine on the Nunu is going to have to stick in the jungle a lot longer than a Jarvan would have to, at least to get himself rolling, and no pun intended there. They're going to start at the red on both sides here. A couple pings coming out. Hey, make sure you hit it. Braum did go down into the bottom lane, though, to keep an eye on that Varus and to double check, which is a bit of a new, let's see. Okay, no, they do have the pressure there. They do. That color was all messed up on my side.
It can be a little difficult to see. Junglers now just going to clear out their vision, manage to land a lot of damage, a lot of poke that comes out from this bot lane. That's the advantage of the Senna and the Caitlyn. They may not be incredibly powerful and engaging, but they're able to poke you down and deal so much damage over time that they have so much lane priority, especially in the early game. Braum really can't get in to do much of it. If they had a Lucian, they would, in the bot lane at least, they would be able to proc down that stun very quickly and maybe have the ability to try and engage as a result. But instead, Varus just going to have to sit back, farm, use that Q to be able to try and return some of the poke, again, a lot more difficult because there's a Senna there healing you up and poking you back.
Exactly. That's a great combination. We know how much Dean loves the aggressive supports. We saw him play a lot of Pike last season, and he's got a new one. The first ever marksman support who really does a lot if you know how to use her, and if you use those Qs effectively. As you mentioned, they both deal damage and take it. And if you can collect those souls immediately, as Dean has been doing a good job of there, it's going to help you out a lot as well later on, which a lot of supports, they offer early pressure. They might not offer a lot later game. Senna, she manages to do both.
Does have some great scaling on that champion. Looking across the map, things are relatively even for most lanes. Slight lead there for that Lucian in the middle lane, but it's being ironed out or answered in return by this pressure that the bot lane has been putting. Actually fairly even in the bot lane due to the relic shield on the Braum. Good engage there from the Lucian. Red Hot's forced to back away. Press the attack can do a lot of damage to you in the early game. Very good on a champion like Lucian who can proc it incredibly quickly.
And that might be one that we see banned out next time because
if we make it to
exactly,
a game 3.
if that is the case, or something that maybe Boise State attempts to use themselves. We know how aggressive Red Hots loves to be. We have seen him take some ADCs in the mid lane in the past. We know it's not really his favorite. He likes the assassin style, heavy engagers, but this is just working so darn well that it might be something that Boise State might try to take over themselves. In this bottom lane now, lots of pressure, and hey, Woojin's feeling a lot more comfortable in that top lane up against Kennen on Malphite.
Absolutely. Malphite actually deals a surprising amount of damage. Does get stunned there, but he's going to be just fine. Malphite has so much health. It's great because you can just back off a little bit, regenerate that shield back up, and then come back into lane and farm. And in the meantime, you can still use your Q for decent farming.
And he's still got 2 corrupting potions, I believe, there. So he is doing just fine. Probably going to end up having to use those for mana over health, if anything there. Simon Fraser feeling a little pushed back. They do have a 0.1 gold advantage, meaning that they've got at least they've got the CS advantage there. And we can kind of see that with a lot of the pressure, in particular, that bottom lane, as we can see there. And actually, a really good job, again, of Red Hots maintaining CS with how much he's been pressured in the mid.
Agreed, but we could say that about a lot of players across the map. Boise State has a lot of pressure, but Simon Fraser is ahead on farm alone. There are no eliminations, no objectives taken, so great job by them. Woojin managing to put down quite a bit of poke damage, but there's a gank coming from the bottom side.
There's that third hit. He's going to get the stun down. Woojin has to flash out. And it does look like they will abandon that one. And in the meantime, great move there by Woojin, who actually managed to not only survive, but get his team that dragon. Not necessarily get it for them, but hey, he distracted the jungler there, who managed to take nothing from that fight. Sure, Woojin may have lost his flash, but that was well worth it. First dragon, first tower. So far, the first part of one of Doc's keys to the game has been fulfilled.
And importantly, that's an Infernal Drake. That's going to increase the attack damage and ability power across Boise State's members. And that's such a big deal for them because they have so much of that across their team. Even now in the top lane, Woojin has opted to pick up the Sheen for extra auto damage after using an ability, possibly going to be building that into the Frozen Fist or the Frost Iceborne Gauntlet as we know it as.
So there's a lot of them, you know.
So very powerful dragon for either team to get. So it's a good thing that ended up going to Boise State. That is going to be the last Infernal of the game, though, so we don't know what the other 3 dragons are going to be.
And I think another big thing about Boise State in recognizing, taking advantage of the fact that Simon Fraser did not prioritize the dragon early on in the last game. They prioritized the area, but they never actually engaged on it before. It was closer to 10 minutes. Mountain is going to be the next one there, it looks like. So they had vision, they had fights around there, but they never actually prioritized it. Boise State recognized, hey, all right, they did not go for the dragon right away. How about we do that? We'll get the bonus pressure from it early on. Lots of damage now coming down. The ultimate out from Red Hots is going to do a lot to Shiny U, and it looks like a flash having to come out. The Slicing Maelstrom, though, is going to stop him. The Trundle coming in and getting a last-second assist. Now it is 4v1 onto Woojin, though. He's going to have to use his ultimate to escape from this fight, and the teleport is down from him, so Boise State losing quite a bit on that fight.
Really unfortunate there for Red Hots. He had the elimination, had the pressure, and then 3 members of Simon Fraser collapse on his lane, not able to do anything. Wujin also used up the teleport, used up the ultimate, and that's a huge problem because that ultimate, Unstoppable Force, has a really long cooldown, but the incredible power that it gives you for that short moment is such a big loss to have for Boise State. So really great play overall, but Simon Fraser for baiting all of that out.
Oh yeah, and a good push in response as well. As soon as Wujin moved down, it looks like the Kennen managed to get a lot of pressure in. He also kind of walked down. Now, I didn't see it, so there is a ward there, but the moment Nunu started coming back up and Wujin started coming back up through that riverside, there was a red ping actually up there, as though he knew. I had seen the vision cone was used probably 30 to 60 seconds prior to that. So either it was good timing or I'm not seeing a ward that has been set down there for the red side. Either way, really good pressure from Kennen and really good pullback.
Boise State now doing a great job of holding on to their middle game as we do start moving into some items. So we do see that the the Bilgewater Cutlass, which will build into Blade of Ruin King for both Varus and Lucian, going to come onto those builds. Great item for chewing through tanks like that Malphite, so they are going to definitely need that.
And exact same as last game, first item for the both of them, a very quick rush, and getting that Cutlass early on means you have a lot of pressure, especially with some of these champions that can escape relatively easily and taking that speed from them. And if it worked last time again, you know, don't fix it. It's not broken there. Gimmick, though, is going to take one hit as well as the ultimate Glacial Fissure there. Gimmick's going to have to flash out the ultimate coming down from Dean, who did use his exhaust in that fight. A good stun. The Slicing Maelstrom comes out. It does get the stun onto Senna, but it was on the outside after the flash came through. And now in comes, can't get Dopamine with that snowball. Manages to just barely miss the Braum as he W's back. Stand behind me. And now in comes Ricky. It is a heavy dive under this tower. The Trundle is going to take tower aggression. A great stun there. Dean's going to be the first one to go down. Can't get Dopamine. Flashes to the other side, but the tower aggro was so good on that juggle there coming from Simon Fraser. All very, very low, and all have taken a few eliminations. That's 3 members of Boise State down.
Ricky actually saved there by his masteries, able to get that Legend Alacrity off, keep him alive during the course of this fight. As we watch here, does a great job of pinning them in place so that they can't run around using that pillar. So Boise State does do a great job of trying to survive, but unfortunately there's too many members, too much force on top of them. The Nunu isn't able to do anything, doesn't have the ultimate available. Pushed off of that tower and they're going to go down.
And that's a few plates as well going to Simon Fraser, which mean that they are looking at just over a 2,000 gold lead in favor of Simon Fraser. And that, again, we're looking at the first bounty of the game. 2-0-1 on Varus in the bottom lane. Caitlyn doing a good job there, keeping up with CS and keeping pressure on this lane here. But look at the vision now coming down from Simon Fraser that has been placed on the blue jungle. It's ridiculous. I see one just went away towards the Raptors there, but you've got 3 or 4 wards that are now being spotted by Boise State. A lot of vision control in favor, once again, of Simon Fraser.
And now it might cost Boise State the Dragon, as there's a lot of focus around that area. Boise State actually is on the Dragon, pardon me, getting those teams mixed up, as now they're trying to zone Simon Fraser off of it. They do pick it up. It's pretty hard to get a Dragon away from a Nunu. And now we're going to see, as the cloud winds quicken, there's going to be speed boost across the map, and that's also a very important Dragon because it allows you to get ultimate cooldown. So for Boise State, especially on that Malphite, that's going to be a very important Dragon to take.
Those little speed boosties always remind me of Dominion. Just running away from everybody, running into the bushes, and that's going to be helpful for some of these guys. Ooh, 3-1 though, 2 or 3 found out, can't get Dopamine. Down comes the Slicing Maelstrom, and that's not even going to give him a chance to respond there. Once again, the heavy invades on the jungle. Simon Fraser finding some advantage there. Red Hots is going to take a couple hits from the Braum, who walks away, and some pings coming out now, as well as the blue side is going to try to put pressure down here on this bottom tower and take the first one for themselves. That is the second half of Doc's key to the game. They did get the first dragon. Hey, they even got the second dragon. And it looks like they're not going to be able to pick up that third. Not only that, but down goes Red Hot's, a good Glacial Fissure. There is a stopwatch coming out there. No way. Okay, Gimmick's going to pick that one up, but the culling means that he's going to immediately go down in response. Dean does find the lockdown there onto Shimmy Yu. Not enough damage, it looks like, is going to be dealt as an exhaust actually being thrown down to save himself. In comes Can't Get Dopamine. That snowball just doesn't make sharp enough turns. It's a wide turner, that snowball. It's like a big 18-wheeler, you know?
Bit of an overextension there from Boise State. Red Hots was so far behind the tower, trying to eliminate those minions so that they have a bit more pressure on that tower. Might have been safer to just back off a bit. And now Simon Fraser is going to summon the Rift Herald right under the tower, take a few plates for themselves, and feel pretty darn good about it.
That should be enough for them to... Ooh, I thought they were going to get all but the last, so they took... There was one plate left for them, or two, I suppose, there on that instant replay. Going to take another look at this one. It was a great ultimate, great Glacial Fissure there, and even better was the stopwatch, though, in response to the Senna ultimate. Then the Illusion culling coming down. Some really great play from everybody here, but the responses are just so on point. And the problem with these fights is Boise State generally puts themselves in the position of making the first engage and not really getting to respond there. And that means that Simon Fraser is the one that gets to make all the tricky plays that impress me.
I really want to credit Kaguya on that one, doing such a great job. Unfortunately, now Red Hots is going to be cut out in the mid lane. Slicing nails from Pillar prevents the escape, but he manages, isn't going to get away. Lucian able to jump in with the Light Slinger, able to proc Brahm's passive. Can't Get Dopamine has been trying to do something, but unfortunately not able to find pressure on the map. He's going to get found out by Ricky, forced to back away because he doesn't have any help right now, but it does look like bot lane is moving up to try and do something.
Definitely want some damage to come from this Caitlyn, and she's feeling not great, sitting at 1-2-0. Did finish that Storm Razor, though, so at least one item through, but both of the ADCs who did so much damage last game, both sitting at 0 deaths, both sitting at 2 eliminations and 2 and 3 eliminations there, respectively, according to the map. And bounties on 3 members there, so we've got at least a lot of prioritization on champions to focus for Boise State. If they can knock one of those down, especially giving it over to Gimmick, would be massive for them.
Wujin doing his best to try and put pressure on this Kennen, but Kennen's had the ability to roam very quickly across the map, something that Malphite simply doesn't have the movement speed to be able to match, and as a result, he hasn't had as much pressure on this game as this Kennen has with Kennen's ability to roam. Currently, Malphite, I believe, does not have the teleport advantage. Both of them appear to still have their teleports up from my angle here.
Yes.
So Boise State trying to put pressure on this bot lane, continuing to try and take this bot lane tower. The Cloud Drake will be up very shortly, so both teams need to be on the lookout for that.
And Gimmick and Dean definitely getting into a bad spot here. The ultimate going to come out from Senna, though, and stun 2 of them. A Q following through. The teleport will be coming down. Woojin making his way into the bottom lane. Red Hot, as he was moving down, though, gets caught out. A great ultimate in response. He manages to dodge both the culling and the Glacial Fissure there. Some sneaky feat. He does end up going down, but was able to do a lot in terms of aggression and damage there against the other team. Can't Get Dopamine going to use his ultimate here. The Slicing Maelstrom does come out and prevents a lot of damage from going down, and Woojin is going to be found out. The concussive blows locking him in place. You talked about that Kennen having a lot of movement speed, and Dean fortunately does not have as much as he would like here. He did manage to get the lockdown on 2 of them, a very solid route. And now Dean's still in the fight. He gets stunned down there. The exhaust coming through. Can't Get Dopamine has come back in to save the day. Gimmick is very low, but he wants to get some poke in. And now the recall here coming through means Boise State leaves that one at a stalemate.
Very dangerous by Dean there to stick around. They did manage to get a shutdown onto the Lucian. That gold is going to go over to Woojin and propel this Malphite further into the game, so they will have additional tank stats, but that was a bit of a disaster for Boise State. Caught there in the jungle. Dragon is going to go over to Simon Fraser, so they're going to get more cooldown reduction on their ultimates, which is going to be huge for that Kennen.
That's not what we want. We don't want a huge Kennen, because we saw one of those and it was not a good thing. 2 and 10 is the current kill spread, so we know that the gold lead right now is in favor of Simon Fraser. You're looking at just over 4K. So keeping that distance pretty high, and only 17.5 minutes in for 4K for them this time. They do have 2 on towers, and Boise State did manage to pick one up. I actually didn't see who the very first one went to, since a couple of them went down very, very quickly after each other. I believe Simon Fraser got that advantage.
Now, this isn't an impossible game for Boise State. They do still have the ability to siege on these towers, but a lot of focus needs to be put on vision. We've seen a lot of situations where Red Hots was just unable to join the fights or do anything because he got caught out because he didn't have vision on people that were collapsing on top of his lane. Even now, he's got some support now, so there is a lot of focus around the middle of the map. But they've also got pushing up in the top lane, they've got pushing in the bottom lane. So Boise State is being forced to make a decision.
A flash in and an ultimate from Woojin. Can't get Dopamine, gonna pick one up. Down goes Woojin, though the Slicing Maelstrom coming out here is going to solo out. Can't get Dopamine. Ninsassin is going to pick that one up, and now Boise State is a little bit split here. They're going to try to put some pressure on the mid after losing a couple of members. We know they can't really head towards an objective, as we can see that Baron Pit going to be lighting up soon. The culling coming out from Shimiyu. Dean is going to drift away here and camouflage his buddies. Does look like they will be able to escape here. The Kennen is not the one chasing them down, so they should be safe for now.
Unfortunately, Boise State forced to sacrifice both tanks in order to keep their carries alive. And while they were able to get an elimination off of that, and it went over
in order to keep their carries alive.
Yes.
Flash ult Woojin.
Flash ult Woojin. I mean, he did a great job engaging on that situation, and the carries were able to stay out of that area. But unfortunately, there was so much damage being put on them, and the carries weren't able to follow up on top of that because they were so far back, because they couldn't get in range because of the Slicing Maelstrom.
Well, that, and also just the fact that they didn't have vision on everyone. Once again, there's a channel coming out as the snowball is used to escape. Slicing Maelstrom already off cooldown. He does get stunned down in the middle of it, but can't get Dopamine, is going to be very quickly eliminated. And that's a lot of deaths on both Can't Get Dopamine and Red Hots in the mid lane, as he's had so much pressure. Dean getting some nice poke off onto this Kennen here, but the control on this map is definitely in favor of Simon Fraser. Again, no matter what wards Boise State puts down, it's never enough. And now Red Hots get some great damage there. A flash out from from Shimiyu means he won that fight, at least in terms of honor, you know.
A lot of poke damage coming out of Kaguya. They do commit Unstoppable Force, and they're going to catch him out in the middle of the team fight. Piercing Arrow goes through. Unfortunately, Woojin just melts, does not have the help in tankiness. Gimmick is able to disengage along with Dean, so they are able to back away from that Ice Pillar. Meanwhile, Red Hot's putting pressure on the top side of the map, does take a tower. Can't get Dopamine, trying to engage, using the snowball, doesn't quite have the ability to reach, so Varus is just going to try and clear waves. They do have some strength around this tower, but Boise State not really in a great position to siege here. They're losing minions and taking a lot of poke in return.
And Kennen is coming down from the middle. There he is, out the Slicing Maelstrom. He picks up 2 with it. Down goes one member. Can't Get Dopamine is going to use his ultimate there. And he is going to make it out alive. Ace in the hole going to be fired off. Misses the target, but still hits the Kennen, and Red Hots is going to finish that one up. A good cleanup there from Boise State, kind of using Simon Fraser's own game against them and thinking that, you know, it's a 1v2 where Simon Fraser would have had the damage advantage, and then Boise State manages to turn it in their favor there.
Look at this. They did such a great job of zoning the members apart, able to pick down Ricky, using that absolute zero to force them to back up. Ace in the hole comes through, but it doesn't matter if it manages to hit the Kennen. You're still going to get it using the flash, using the death ray there from the Victor. Great play by Boise State to have members where they need them to be.
And that is going to keep that gold lead right around that 4K, even less now, actually. So Boise State finding those small victories that will assist you when you are behind, especially in terms of the map. And now we can see lots of Simon Fraser. Thank goodness their vision was just overwhelming and it needed to be cleared. So Boise State finally got the chance to actually remove the majority of that. So we can see from the bottom portion of the map, I think there's only one in bottom, and that one in top just disappeared, actually. So that vision game is huge for Simon Fraser because they're collapsing on members that they know are alone and that might have others around them so that they can win an overall team fight when all 10 members become a part of that fight.
Cloud Drake is up, and Simon Fraser has the priority now. Boise State trying to move in the area. They do have all 5 members there on both sides of the team.
Watch the cannon.
Dragon, unfortunately, going to go down. Braum has the lead, trying to find a stun onto someone. They do land a root. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like either team is going to be able to engage in this fight. And that means overall, we're the losers for not being able to watch an awesome team fight.
Even if Boise State has managed to go in, though, what a great pick on the cannon. Malphite finding that one. Good ult from Woojin. But that fight, what Simon Fraser was waiting was they had Kennen on the backside, the blue side of that dragon pit. They were waiting for Boise State to go around so that he could flash over the wall and ult in and get all 5 of them at once. They wanted the clear from that. Instead, Kennen managed to put himself in a bad situation there. A root but a heal means Gimmick's going to stay alive here. And on the backside is Ricky. Gimmick manages to make it out alive. Red Hot picking that one up. Glacial Fissure coming through is going to take down Can't Get Dopamine, but Boise State still making the best of potentially bad situations there. And Nunu has already had quite a few deaths. The ones they want to keep alive now are the ones they're keeping alive.
Twice in a row now, Boise State did a great job identifying where the flank was coming from and then just deleting whoever was coming for the flank. And it was huge. Not only did you manage to get that shutdown gold onto your Caitlyn, as well as get that Kennen out of the fight, you were also able to zone off Trundle. You were able to push up and keep alive for a much longer period of time than you might have been able to otherwise. And now all of that extra gold is going to get funneled into this Caitlyn. She's currently got Infinity Edge, Stormrazor Surge, and now she's got a Zeal, and that's going to be big for now 75% critical strike chance, so that's huge on your damage.
And that's likely, I would assume, going into a static Shiv right there because it is very effective on Caitlyn. You've got the range, you might as well get some crit damage to be spread around the room when you're fighting here. The ones still you want to keep an eye out on 7-1 and 5 and 3-1 and 4 on the 2 ADCs, if you will, as we've got the Varus and the Lucian there. And Victor's finally finding his footing. God, Red Hot's had so much pressure put on him in the early part of the game. I think he was 0-4 and 2 before he had some takedowns in his favor there. Boise State's going to do everything they can, though, to keep Simon Fraser from getting this objective as easily as they have had previous ones in the last round, as well as earlier in this game. And the Vision game is on.
He has completed Death Cap, so that's going to be a lot of AP damage coming in for Boise State that I think they desperately needed up against this team composition. Looking at the way that Simon Fraser's tanks are building, which is to say Trundle and Braum, they do have a lot of ability power, but they also have some magic resist. Braum actually went for the Locket of the Iron Solari first. Gives you a lot more magic resist against something like the Red Hots, like Can't Get Dopamine, they're Nunu and Victor.
Honestly, the reason they ended up victorious in that bottom fight earlier on.
Yeah, for the ability to pop that active shield and keep you alive. And also, it just means that those tanks who normally, would do at least a little damage are really doing nothing. We saw the Ice Pillar there being used to prevent Nunu from engaging onto the Trundle. So a lot of wave clear from Simon Fraser. Boise State having a hard time finding their way to a win condition. And in the meantime, there's a Kennen pushing in the bot lane.
And they cannot get caught out here. They need to really focus. We can see that instantly the Senna and the Caitlyn there, who were pushing towards the red. I think they may have taken the red buff over on Simon Fraser's side, recalling, instantly recognizing, hey, we should probably go save that bottom tower. It is our lane. And because of that, Simon Fraser recognizes that Boise State heads back down, and they are moving towards this Baron pit. However, Boise State instantly pings out that they're on the way. We gotta watch out for Kennen on the other side of the river here, though. That is where things could get scary, is if he jumps in on this fight, they need to know where he is. Hopefully somebody got vision. There's the turn instantly. Red Hots and Gimmick going on the other side. It was just too little too late, though. The Slicing Maelstrom comes through, the ultimate as well from the Senna coming through. There is the Victor ult, and a good lockdown on one member is not going to be enough as Shimmy Yu takes down Can't Get Dopamine. And Boise State now having to fully back off of this one. Senna actually gonna say, hey, I might as well take something from this. Their blue buff is almost back up. Looks like she's gonna go kind of take something from the jungle. Whatever you can get if you know you're gonna lose the objective. And without Can't Get Dopamine, they're probably going to lose this one.
It looked like there was some really slow objective calling there from Boise State, as now Dean is being caught out in the jungle, able to get away with that blast cone. Baron's going to go over to Simon Fraser, but it looked like they were having a hard time trying to say, hey, this is where we want to be and how we want to engage. Do we want to be involved in this Baron fight? And because of that, it took them such a long time to commit Wujin's teleport and get him up there, to the point that he wasn't even really involved in the fight, when he could have completely turned things around with his ultimate by catching multiple members, maybe even able to get that cannon before it jumped onto Gimmick. However, Cloud Drake is going to go over to Boise State. They do have priority on this bottom side right now because all of the members of Simon Fraser backed the items. So Boise State doing a good job keeping in the game by taking objectives. They do have 3 dragons now, so 1 more dragon and they will have the Cloud Soul.
And they did steal that 3rd one away, but it would be nice, yeah, to have the finals on that one. And it's one, you know, you've got 3 different dragons that all really offer their own to Boise State. Not that I would say earlier on I would have said really any dragon would help them, and I think it's kind of at that point in the game as well. So if they can pick up and keep away a little bit less of that movement from the cannon, it's all in favor of them.
Now we're in a bit of a scary situation here because the Baron buff is coming down. Boise State being pushed across all 3 lanes right now.
All 5 members did pick that up.
Yes, all 5 members, and now Braum trying to come in, is able to shield himself to keep relatively safe, though Gimmick is putting a lot of pressure on him, able to chunk him down to about half health. Boise State loses their bottom lane tower to this cannon. Wujin on that Malphite doesn't have a lot of wave clear, just a little bit that he can get up close, so without taking a whole bunch of poke damage, he's going to have a hard time.
Lucian, however, would be the one where I would assume he would have been able to kind of fight a little bit because, I mean, you've got to get in, and he was behind the tower, essentially. Good lockdown there is going to be just after the tower goes down. That's going to be 5 for Simon Fraser from Boise State, sitting at 4, so not feeling too horrible at this point, almost 30 minutes into the game. I'm looking at about a 7K, just under a 7K gold difference there for Simon Fraser. So Boise State has still been extending that from getting into too big of a gap for so long in this game. A big priority on the CS. They've been maintaining that across the board, even ahead still in some states.
There is a bounty on Varus, and if you look at Varus' items, he's actually picked himself up a Hex Drinker just to give him a little more to try and survive this Yasuo, or pardon, for trying to survive Red Hot on this Victor. Boy, that was wrong, but they are able to pick up that top lane turret, aren't able to catch anyone out, but there is an engage.
The Glacial Fissure, though, did come back immediately there, and a little bit of poke down. Yeah, you've got you've got a Bloodthirster too about to come through for this Varus. So once that happens, that's going to be pretty terrifying for Boise State. They need to get him locked down, and they need to prevent him from sitting in the back line and doing damage to anyone he wants to. We know that's what Varus does best, but they've got so much good peel right now. Even the Kennen peel, which normally you don't talk about Kennen peeling a Nunu and a Malphite away, but that Slicing Maelstrom is so effective on these team fights that he really is doing just that.
And he does have the Hex Tech Revolver, which gives him additional lifesteal, which is going to allow him to sustain himself using the Slicing Maelstrom, using all of that damage that he's outputting, so he can continue to be in these fights. And they do have 2 Cloud Dragons, so that's 20% cooldown reduction on that Slicing Maelstrom. He's going to have it up for almost every fight.
And I think a big thing as well that Simon Fraser has been working is just straight burst. That's clearly what their composition is made to do. Boise State, it's trying to focus, I guess, around the champions that'll work well together and maybe what their final goal may be. And Simon Fraser's like, we're just going to burst them all day long. Doesn't matter the lane, doesn't matter the time of the game, but we have the burst potential. And they ensure that if they're going in for burst, they're going to commit fully to it. And luckily for them, Boise State really hasn't had the opportunity to collapse on it as a response just quickly enough. These kinds of things happen. The good split there. A Slicing Maelstrom doesn't take down anybody for the first time. A great snowball there on the ultimate now coming out here. The stun does go through onto Can't Get Dopamine, and on the backline, Shimmy Yu is going to flash over, use the culling, get a triple kill. He's looking for a quadra, but out comes the ultimate from Victor. A flash over as well from Red Hot. There is an elimination. There is a Braum there. Thought he'd saved that Lucian, but he did go down. So a lot A lot of summoner spells out on both sides. Simon Fraser really taking the advantage on this one, though. We'll see what Red Hots is able to do.
Red Hots is the only one left alive against 3 members of Simon Fraser who are pushing up. There is going to be a dragon up shortly, so if Boise State can manage to get themselves together before that dragon happens, that will be a huge prime opportunity. But unfortunately, it looks like Simon Fraser is going to move towards that dragon, and they do have their jungler alive. They do have a lot of damage from the Varus. If they want to take it, they can probably just walk in and take it.
And that is likely what they're going to try to do. We can see a ping coming out. Boise State planning on heading down that bottom lane. Likely to get some pressure there and try to force Simon Fraser away from the Dragon Pit. They are splitting themselves up again. Boise State seeming to try to take on a lot of these split fights, and then 1 or 2 members realizes that they're not going to make it there in time and have to reroute their pathing. And it does not end up going well. Out comes a flash. There's the slicing Maelstrom. What a good pillar coming from the Trundle. Wujin's going to go down next, and Assassin on that. And just like I mentioned, a little too late to be coming together is when they managed to find it. Nunu not even going to be able to ult. Speaking of ult, in comes the Braum one. There it is. The Avalanche does quite a bit of damage, takes down 2 members. The culling is the response, and the ace in the hole is going to clean this one up. Boise State finds an ace. What an amazing play there. Gimmick and Can't Get Dopamine really doing what I thought was the impossible in that instance. Can't Get Dopamine survived just long enough to deal an immense amount of damage with his ultimate there and prevent Gimmick from taking it.
You can't underestimate the survivability of things like Wujin's top laner Malphite does able to force down that cannon. They're able to eliminate him very early in the fight. Trundle forced away here, and then you just watch this Nunu and the amount of survivability he has. He takes so much damage, is forced to back off, but is able to survive, and now he's got his ultimate. Absolute Zero grants you a shield, and he puts down so much damage, so much zoning potential, locking them in the area as Gimmick is able to back off and just ace in the hole. Goodbye. This team fight is ours.
And now the crit is really heavy, and actually we can see that there is already finished now. You have a Phantom Dancer along with finished Poots. We're working on the last item for this Caitlyn, actually, as you got an RFC sitting there as well. And now we're going to get a little bit of extra burn with the Executioners calling there. Some vision would certainly help Boise State in this instance, since they are still pressured in terms of towers, 7-4 right now. But they're doing a great job of thinning out that gap between gold on these 2 teams right now.
Boise State has the Cloud Soul, but they don't have vision in the area around Baron, so this could be very dangerous. Simon Fraser knows that they can bait Boise State into these fights. They have the ability. Teleport going to be committed from that bottom lane just to make sure that they have their entire team together going into this. They do have the Cloud Soul, so that gives them a little bit of movement speed. It gives them a little bit more cooldown reduction, so they are going to be feeling very safe in this instance.
And Boise State, once again, kind of taking Simon Fraser's strategy and using it against them in trying to bait out fights, and then falling back, likely to try to get to either a safer position or leading to the rest of their team. I really think, not that they have to give it up on these split fights, but that was the first one that has gone in their favor, and it was really thanks to the survivability there of Can't Get Dopamine. They are going to try to engage, and they did find a split. Once again, Red Hot's being caught out here. A couple ultimates coming out to get him. The Glacial Fissure and the Culling are not going to be enough to kill him, though. He stayed alive, and Boise State finds 2 eliminations there. Can't Get Dopamine does get taken down beforehand, but this is going to give Boise State the chance to engage on the Baron. This is huge for them, and they're doing so much damage themselves. Now they're finally at their burst potential, and Gimmick, with the amount of crit, is just absurd. He's going to be able to 3-shot both Jimmy Yu and an Assassin there, so they're going to have to be very, very scared.
Once again, Boise State sniffs out the attempted flank from that cannon. The ability to come in with that, with the ultimate, with this slicing Maelstrom is so huge for Simon Fraser's entire team composition. But when that's denied, when you lose all of that damage, when you lose all of that crowd control, your team falls apart. Red Hots was able to back off, was protected by Can't Get Dopamine, landing the CC to give him a little more space. And now Boise State has multiple members with the Baron pushing up this mid lane.
4 out of 5, if I believe. Can't Get Dopamine's the only one that did not manage to snag it. I think it was Gimmick who managed to stay alive during that fight. No idea. I would have to see a replay on just to see, because there were so many. There was the culling that came out for him. You had the Glacial Fissure that popped him up. He was taking so much damage there, and Boise State was trying to peel, but obviously the focus is going to be on that ADC. He manages to get over that wall, and the rest of the team was able to do exactly what was necessary there. So incredible play coming from Boise State. And it does look like Immortal Reminder is that finished item. Caitlyn already done. A root there is going to be under tower, and down comes the slicing Maelstrom. He gets one. Woojin, though, gets stunned under tower immediately after, following a root, a flash out there, and Ricky is going to be the next target there. Red Hot's finding one, and that's going to give Boise State tower number 5. And look at the pressure they have here now. These 3 members, a 4th member heading back towards the fountain, all are going to have to sit and wait to regen themselves. A teleport comes in from Woojin on the top lane, and Boise State is looking to close this one out.
Woojin actually would have gone down if not for the gargoyle. Stoneplate keeping him alive with just a sliver of health. Now Boise State has complete priority over this lane. Kennen trying to find something. Unstoppable Force doesn't find Kennen, but it doesn't matter. There's enough damage. Double kill over the Gimmick as they continue to pressure this tower. Red Hot's taking a lot of tower damage, is going to go down to the Varus piercing arrow. So now Boise State continues to have pressure on this lane. Dean is really low though, so he needs to be careful.
He did just get ignited though, and the Ignite's gonna go down on the other side and prevent him from finishing off the culling. Boise State is going to find game number 2 and push this out to a 3. Please, can we take a break? I wanted Boise State to win, you know, because I always love seeing game 3s, but that also means that we got to take a quick break. I drink a lot of water up here. I love seeing that. They wanted the late game. They wanted the team fights. They waited to get to that point, and they made it work.
It was that last fight around Dragon where Boise State was able to zone off of Gimmick, and because he was able to survive for so long and to put out his damage over the course of the fight, did a great job just staying alive, being that constant threat, and that's what won them that last fight.
I still cannot believe that he survived that entire thing with all of the aggression. No matter how hard Simon Fraser tried, they couldn't lock him down. They couldn't get who they wanted, and that meant that Boise State got exactly what they did.
All right, so everybody, we are 1-1, Boise State versus Simon Fraser, and we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because it is the third game, and I'm very excited to see how this turns out.
Boise State Esports is brought to you by Game Pants Arenas and Equipment, Omen by HP, and Archon Clothing, makers of official licensed Boise State Esports apparel. Since 2016, universities have been adding varsity esports, competitive intercollegiate video game teams, with nearly 100 colleges and universities now with official programs. Esports is fast becoming the new college sport. But with any dramatic change comes criticism. How could institutions of higher learning promote something so trivial? But when you look a little closer, esports demonstrates, just like other sports, that it's a pathway to something more.
There's several misconceptions when it comes to esports and its place on the university campus. The first and foremost is that people would say it's not a valuable learning activity. It's not a place where people can learn new job-related skills or maybe get a good industry feel for what's happening outside the university environment. And that's just simply not the case. And all evidence points otherwise. There are so many new jobs. The industry is absolutely booming. People are looking for students that are graduating with experience in things like streaming and technologies, marketing, the whole business side, sponsorships. There's the whole graphics and coding component that involved in esports and other video game type of activities that are really important in just terms of jobs and industry.
And on their way to those careers, students who attend schools with varsity esports programs can compete for their university. But in order to be eligible, students have to meet the same high academic standards as other student athletes.
You have to maintain a certain GPA. You shouldn't be playing constantly. You should have like a certain time frame and like practice for like 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day. You shouldn't be just like overwhelming yourself.
Care about your grades first and foremost. As Dr. Haskell said, he cares about our grades first because we came to college to get an education, to get a degree, and then we also get to do what we love and play esports.
Athletics and other university-sanctioned activities bind students together with purpose, a chance to be part of something bigger than yourself, where we learn to work hard, play a role, lose with dignity, win with honor, all for our school. This is why we play.
And welcome back to the Boise State Game Pants Esports Arena. We are in the middle of a very exciting matchup between Boise State and Simon Fraser. We're 1-1 right now, and you know, I have a bit of a question because Glover mentioned he was a bit nervous about this match, and I would like to hear a bit more about that.
Going throughout the game, Boise State had a very rough early game. Simon Fraser did a great job of pushing their advantages. Yes, Boise State managed to get some early objectives, and that kept them in the game. But throughout the middle portion of the game, Boise State was getting caught out. They were losing team fights. They were getting picked off. They were losing objectives. And it looked really grim up until that final fight there at that dragon, able to keep Gimmick alive for just such a long period of time. I thought it was over when Dean dropped and when Red Hots and other members weren't there to engage in the fight. But they were able to keep alive with just one member alive, and that gold swing, getting the shutdowns for that Caitlyn, able to pick up that fourth Cloud Dragon was such a huge boon for them, able to turn the game completely on its head.
I wasn't nervous.
Sure you weren't.
I mean, I was nervous based on the matchup. I liked Boise State's matchup a lot better in terms of that late game playability, and I really do think that is what helped them. Malphite, Nunu, really everybody coming in so clutch there. And as pressured as Red Hots was, too, still able to do exactly what he needed to. That fight towards the mid lane where he was able to flash in and get the last pick on I think it ended up being like the Bear Solution. Just really big picks like that definitely led to Boise State being able to claim that, because I would have sworn on that push down bot when we had 2-3 members of Simon Fraser at the Nexus. I think Woojin was the only one alive that was defending the base, and they decided to peel back and go towards Dragon. And that ended up being the fight that Boise State found.
So when they're picking this time, it sounds like it was a total change-up from last time. And then last time didn't go completely in Boise State's favor the whole time. So what do you think is their approach of like maybe the better two evils, or how are they going to go with picking?
I think the first thing you do is you keep that Olaf off the field. That was one of the big things that kept Simon Fraser so far ahead in the first game. Olaf is just really powerful. It's not really possible to peel him back. If you look at that second game, Can't Get Dopamine had a lot of scenarios where his ability to lay down crowd control was so huge in keeping Gimmick alive for longer, so he was able to continue pumping out that damage. Olaf just says no to that, and then you don't have Gimmick around anymore, and then you don't have any of that damage coming through for your team. So Olaf, definitely keep him off the field. Maybe consider looking into getting rid of that cannon, because it had so much influence up until the late game where they were able to get the ideas to where those flanks were coming from. But otherwise, a great composition from Boise State.
And I think the cannon, I think they let it through twice. They were confident enough that Woojin would be able to hold him off, and he did. And so I think letting the Kennen through would probably be okay in that they went for the late game, and they managed to get to the late game, and Kennen, as much pressure as he's got early mid-game, he does end up falling off late game in that he really can't burn through you once you got enough tank. Once you're able to lock him down and your damage gets on him, he's pretty much done for. So I think it's okay to let the Kennen through. I really liked the adjustment in the composition change, though. Some of it kind of stayed the same. You got the Kate and the Senna that was similar, but I do like the later game mentality that Boise State went in. They said, even though we had pressure, even though we had objectives early on, we still ended up losing that first round. So let's just make it so that if we get that early objective push, we're going to be able to carry it somewhere else.
Now we're getting into picks and bans, both teams preparing themselves for the third game of this incredibly close series. Yasuo going to be the first ban there, getting that away from Red Hots. We've seen how powerful that champion is. Mordekaiser also a powerful champion. He's ruined a lot of my solo queue games, so we're going to see him banned away from that top side of the jungle.
So that means blue side was picked by Simon Fraser as they lost that last round. The Caitlyn was banned out, so they don't want to see that a third time. There was a lot of pressure coming from it. Boise State sticking with the first three, the Kled as the second. Hopefully that third is going to be Olaf, as you know, that was literally the one change between the composition from the first game and the second game, in that Olaf was banned out and they had to pick up the Trundle. Definitely went well, but not nearly as aggressive as you could be with an Olaf early game. Final ban being selected here. It is going to be Senna, and those are some respect bans right there, folks. Caitlyn and Senna both being taken off the board instead of removing more potential mids from Red Hots there. So Olaf is going to be the final one. You guys are awesome in picking that. Thank you. I know you didn't do it for me, but Akali being locked in. Red Hots knows how to play against an Akali or two, though, because Red Hots has played an Akali or two before. So as scary and as good as Simon Fraser might think that is, I actually think that is okay for Boise State. Red Hots has played against Akali so many times in a losing matchup and done very well, to the point that I'm actually confident in this one. Nunu and Willump works very well for Can't Get Dopamine, and so they're going to stick with that.
So I have done my research, and I do know that Shimmy over there does have a good Akali. It is something that he consistently played throughout the most of the previous season. So Nunu and Willump also going to be picked up. It was a great champion in the previous game, did a great job zoning for Gimmick, but they don't have the Caitlyn now, so it looks like they're going to pick the Varus. So they still have that long-range poke, and without the Caitlyn to answer it, you have to go for something else that has long range. Do you pick the Jhin? Do you pick the Jinx? Or do you try to survive in a lane matchup where you've got a whole lot less attack range?
Or it's a flex.
That's also
Or it's a mid Varus. And
Jungle Varus. Make it happen.
Jungle Varus, Nunu and Willump top, you know. Oh, so it does look like that Misfortune maybe picked up here a good, a good selection into the Varus. Varus does have certain opportunities where, for instance, if MF tries to go in an ult, he can just ult back in response so long as there aren't any minions in the way. It's going to stop her dead in her tracks, but she does have a lot of early game push on the wave, and that's going to give them that priority that they would be looking for in someone like Misfortune. That way she can roam, head towards objectives potentially, and deal quite a bit of bursties there. Last second, the last moment switch to the Leona. Leona was banned out there by Boise State, at least in the first game, if not also in the second one there. And a Thresh. Now, I don't know if you guys know who Dean's favorite champion is, or at least was as of last season. I don't know how high Pike and Senna went up in that, but Thresh is definitely one that we have seen Dean on, and he's played a lot of Thresh. He plays some good Thresh, and that means that bottom lane is going to be so incredibly aggressive. Obviously, you'd expect that with Leona on the other side. Good response there, though. A Kennen is going to be the ban out here, so it's at least scary enough that they just really don't want to deal with it right now with their current composition.
So the Thresh-Leona matchup is one that we saw last night, and it was a great bot lane. Dean many times able to stop the Zenith Blade with well-timed plays. Malphite going to be banned away, also respecting that top lane. So we're going to see something completely different than we've seen before. There are still some very powerful top laners up left. We still have the Ornn, the Cho'Gath, the Fiora, which is going to be banned away.
Kled was banned 2 times as the second pick earlier. Kled is the second ban already.
He's already the second ban.
3 times as the second ban. Fiora, I mentioned being incredibly powerful right now. Also one that is a little more difficult to counter. a riposte really offers a lot of sustainability early game into late game, especially if you're focusing on some heavy crowd control there. The final one, another respect band. Would you look at that? 4 champions from the last game are knocked off there, and that means that Woojin is going to get that Ornn that he loves so much. And Red Hots either has an option here or that Varus is going mid. I'd be a little bit more surprised if it was going mid, as we know. I mentioned how much Red Hots loves the assassin style, the assassin types. And he especially loves assassin into assassin, because that's a lot of tricky footing.
Cho'Gath being hovered here. It is a good sustained matchup into the Ornn, but it looks like it's going to be Gangplank. So early on, doesn't have a lot of pressure in most lanes, but if he does get ahead, it can be very scary. Late game, he's going to be doing tons of damage, so very similar look to that Kennen that we saw in the previous game. Area of effect, lots of map pressure, especially when he hits level 6. Elise now being hovered as their jungle option could be a very interesting pick to see. We did see it being played last night, and it did fairly well, but it's going to be Trundle that's finally locked in. Very good pick into that Ornn, able to steal away a lot of his tank stats, similar to what they did previously with the Nunu and Willump. And now Boise State has the counter pick in that bottom lane, or in the middle lane, and it's going to be Silas.
Ooh, it is the Silas, and we know how much Red Hots loves playing at the Silas. Nothing hurts more than having your own ultimate used against you, and he has a lot of really good options here. Gangplank and Misfortune in particular, both huge. If it comes to needing to go a little bit more defensive, a Leona Solar Flare on their team is going to be massive, and those slowdowns are really what Boise State needs here. So I love the fact that we got as many respect bands as we did, that we're seeing a completely different team from both of these guys here. And I've got quite a bit of confidence in the blue and orange on this one, just based on the comfort picks.
I do think that Silas in particular is something we need to watch out for. He did get a bit of a rework, but so Silas is going to look a little different than the last time that we saw him, but is going to have a very similar bruiser-ish play style. Still a very powerful champion.
All right, so if you're just tuning in with us, it's Boise State and Simon Fraser playing League of Legends. And we are going to go into a game 3, and we're 1-1. So before we do, we're going to go into a mid-game grade check.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to, there's a quick overview of what we decided on last time. I think this time is going to be a little different. So we'll start with Glovely again, based on the draft from the last one. What are you thinking?
Much better draft in the previous game. I'm going to give them a B+ on it. I think they had a great idea as to what they were doing with it. They definitely improved a lot. Being able to zone for that Caitlyn.
I'm going to give them an A-. Same rights. They did a great job. A little baby A-. And Lexi, how are you going to beat that?
Oh, well, let's just throw an A+ in there.
Oh, she's bringing the pluses in.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting
it did
dunked
work
on.
very well. All right, jumping down to vision control. Glovely, how are you feeling about this one?
Boise State also did a fantastic job of continuing their vision control. I'm going to bump that B+ up to an A, because I think they did a great job just keeping control of the field, and it was able to bring out a lot of team fights that they ended up winning.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep mine at a B+. And the reason behind that is they did a great job, but early on there was a lot of pressure from Simon Fraser thanks to all their vision. All right, and Lexi, how
I
you
think
feeling
we're
about
going
this
to
one?
stick with the A. I can't be over generous here, so I'll save my pluses.
Alrighty, that moves us down to objective control. What are you thinking there?
I think Boise State definitely improved on objective control. Those early dragons that they picked up, early pressure on the map, allowed them to survive to that late game. Great job, Boise State. You're getting an A.
I'm going to give this one, I'm giving an A+. Of all the things on this board, this is by far the one that they had best control over, and I really do think it's the reason they won the game.
So if you give it an A+, then can I do an A squared? Can they do that?
Oh, what?
I don't know.
I don't know if we have
A
that bonus.
factorial? A to the A.
A to the A. A to the 8th power.
That's, all right, I like it. Moving down now to time management. What do you think, Glovely?
Boise State did a great job across the board. We're just going to keep that B+ on there. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the B+ as well. Basically the same as last game. I mean, they did a great job. It wasn't exceptional.
So I want to say that I'm at least proud of myself for noticing that they did, amp it up at the second half. So I'm going to throw a wink in there because Lexi understood this one.
A winky is what we're getting. Yeah, the wink, thank you. Team fights. Glovely, last one for this time. What are you thinking?
They definitely improved over the previous game with the zoning from the Nunu. I'm going to keep my B there because they lost out a lot during that mid-game fight in situations that they probably shouldn't have lost.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I guess I'll be the meanest on this one. I'll just stick it to a B, a straight B, and reason behind that is because of all those split engages. I think they really did end up hurting them the first half of the game. They figured it out though for the second half.
And I'm having fun, so let's check the bottom of pleasure to have in class.
It's a pleasure to have in class for team fights, guys. All right, and I think we'll keep the smiley there for you on team fights then, Lexi?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Hey, that's an improved grade. You know, that is in college, that's like the best you can get.
All right. Yes.
It is a midterm grade, I suppose.
It is a midterm grade, yeah. You can always pick it up at the end when you do the final.
Yep.
Usually you can pull it out.
They gave us another opportunity, at least. They gave us the opportunity to give them a final grade here as we are going into Game 3. And oh my goodness, this one is going to be good. Because with the aggression we've seen in both games, I think first tower ended up going down a little bit quicker each game, and we know first dragon went down a lot quicker than that first round. So objectives I really do think are going to be huge, in particular for Simon Fraser, since that's where they kind of floundered both rounds.
Boise State has to be feeling good because they've got so many of their personal favorite picks allowed through the draft, able to use those in this game. They're keeping the Nunu from the previous game, so they're still going to have a lot of objective and jungle control. They've got the Ornn in the top lane, which is going to allow them to scale really well into the late game. They have the Varus able to poke out with Dean's Thresh, which we've talked about so many times, just how crazy good that champion is in his hands. Just a reminder that you can type !free sub in the chat, and you can learn how you can subscribe to Boise State's Twitch channel. Your subscriptions fund scholarships.
That they do. And thank you for you guys. I know we've seen a couple thanks for subbing here today. We do a lot of broadcasts, just so you know. A lot of broadcasts.
So many.
And it doesn't matter, you know, if League's not your game, Overwatch, Rocket League, Hearthstone, we have all kinds of fun stuff going on there. And a lot of independent broadcasts that we've had actually going from, you know, students coming in. These players that you'll see, I know Woojin was doing it quite a bit over the break and stuff like that, coming in and streaming from the Boise State account. So you can see on there as well some of their solo play if you like some of these, what these players have to offer here. Nothing too crazy to start out with, some pretty basic back and forth. We're going to be seeing Nunu hanging back for a little while. Hopefully, Simon Fraser doesn't decide to invade quite as much because that did set Nunu back a bit on the early part of the game.
We're currently looking at the way that the teams have arrayed themselves. Junglers are still moving in from place to place, just trying to get everything all set up. Woojin moving very quickly through that top side. One of the advantages of the Snowball over the Trundle, Frozen Domain doesn't grant you nearly as much movement speed as that Snowball does. Trade back and forth in the mid lane.
It was, though. That pillar was certainly preventing Boise State from being able to escape many fights, and that's really all it was. It wasn't even the movement speed on it. It was the placement that he got, and as we can see that Snowball coming down, Kinkadopian's gonna roll it that direction, just put a little bit of pressure on, and then head back into the jungle. A good play to keep the pressure up here for Red Hots. We don't want that burst to come through later on for the Akali. We do know also, we're looking forward to Akali's Shroud changing a little bit as well. So I believe it will be just that when she gets hit in it, she is revealed.
Currently now, Silas is unfortunately a little low on mana, so just have to be very careful. He could have probably had that gank go well, but now we're going to get another gank happening.
Ooh-wee. A great Zenith there means Dean is going to get ignited and hand the first blood over to that Leona, thanks to the Ignite. Misfortune might be a little bit salty about that one, but it happens. And that Ignite is down now, so at least Boise State knows that they can put a little bit of pressure, but they also have 3 summoner spells of their own down, so that pressure is kind of taken away from them. It's relinquished and handed back over to the Misfortune, sitting on both the heal and the flash.
It was a great lantern coming from Dean to keep Gimmick alive, for allowing him to pull him all the way back to tower from quite a great distance. So we know that Boise State is definitely focusing on prioritizing the protection of that carry. Looks like Dean's going to try and roam up to the mid lane, but he doesn't know that there's a jungler there. Going to get caught out. There's 3 members now on top of him. Aftershock teleports coming down from the top lane. That's a dangerous situation. Woojin pops in and is forced to dash away almost immediately. Maybe really shouldn't have spent that one, given the situation that they were in. Too many members of Simon Fraser.
I think if Red Hot missed both of his abilities there, both the chain pull and the smack, and that meant that he really wasn't able to offer much responding damage, which Woojin likely would have been able to engage back on if that had hit, if he was able to follow through with those. So I guess those are the ifs and the could have beens that really don't matter in this game, but we're going to be seeing some good pickups in terms of creep score for this Misfortune, who's sitting at 10 over Varus now. That movement and that roam actually put a lot of pressure, as well as the force back when Thresh gave up first blood early on. A hook is going to come through, though. Down comes the E here. A flash out, and stun is going to come down onto Gimmick, and Assassin picking that one up. Dean now just trying to escape and actually leading the enemy team up to Can't Get Dopamine, who was able to hit both of them with the snowball, trying to target the ADC there on the back line. And Red Hot's now making his way down. He flashes but misses the chains, and right behind him is Ricky. That's going to force Nunu to flash out. The lantern picked up after being sent out by Dean. Akali making her way down, but possibly too little too late. A great hook there from Dean. The Flay brings him under tower, but Can't Get Dopamine while trying to escape. Does get picked up by the Akali, who goes down there. Ricky getting one for himself. Oh no, it was an execution. It was the turret getting the elimination. Nobody hitting the Akali before turret.
Great play by Simon Fraser, having the team members where they needed to be. Boise State is able to aggress and try and get back, but they don't have the damage. Great play by Woojin.
Look at the gold difference right now. At 6 minutes in, you're at 3.5, just under 3.5K in favor there of Simon Fraser. That's massive. That is absolutely huge.
That's what happens when you have 6 eliminations and a gold lead in almost every single position in
No,
terms
Woojin!
of CS. Woojin unfortunately walks right by the Gangplank, not able to find him before he manages to get back to base. But that's all right. Gangplank going to pick himself up a sheen and walk back to base. Now able to do a little more damage with that parley and have a little more cooldown reduction in mana to start stacking up to that point where he really becomes a terrifying horse.
Now that Varus has also managed to catch up in CS, that is the nice thing about having the pressure of a Dean on your team with that Thresh. That at least makes it so that a Leona does not pressure you that far back to your own tower, which she tends to do just given her presence due to her kit. You want to avoid that Zenith as much as possible, and Thresh is watching out for it. And if not, he's actually getting the engage onto one of them himself. So some really solid moves there. Red Hots does have the level advantage on this one, but he's taking quite a bit of damage here. He manages to hit the chains, and Akali bursts away from them just in time. Boise State now needs to make a move towards this dragon. There goes the vision cone from Nunu, but it is too little too late as it is picked up, and it's going to be an ocean.
Slow comes out, make it rain. Pillar stops Dean in place. He lands a death sentence, but there's nowhere for him to go. Gimmick is going to be able to back away, but Assassin picks up the elimination in that bot lane.
And that means we're looking at a 3-0-3 Misfortune. And that's a scary place. 0-4-0 on Thresh. Yes, he has sacrificed himself multiple times in order to save his ADC, but it's still not a fun place to be when you're that far behind on things like experience from not being able to sit in your lane.
There's 3 members here in the bot lane from both teams. So much pressure is being put on Boise State, especially now that they have a deficit of almost 4,000 gold here. A very difficult position to be in. Now this Misfortune has her best friend Sword, is going to use that to put down lots of damage. The early kills and assists have also gotten her boost of speed, so she's going to be moving a lot quicker, a lot sooner than she would have been otherwise. And this Trundle is just a terror. locking down so many team fights, using that pillar to prevent Boise State from disengaging from fights that they can't win.
And getting a little extra cooldown as well, it looks like, on that Misfortune. All the wards in their inventory for Simon Fraser as well likely means we might see a little bit of pressure or invade, because they tend to try to get those deep this early in the game. Dean, in the meantime, finding one out for himself. Spotting some pink wards, or sorry, vision wards now, I guess. Not now, it's been that way for a while. Vision wards, that's a little bit of gold in Dean's pockets, and potentially a little bit of pressure here in this mid lane, as we can see Nunu coming up. The snowball is going to miss. The dash out goes through the flay. The hook does manage to hit, and down goes Akali. 2 members necessary to gank. That means that the remainder there of Simon Fraser in the bottom half is going to head up. They are going to take the defensive route, though, or at least Leona is, not in an attempt to engage going around the Raptors down there at the bottom side. Now, some pings coming out from Simon Fraser saying, hey, Boise State's heading up towards Shelly. We definitely don't want to give that one up that quickly. And Boise State now is shortening, kind of closing out that goal differential, at least at this point in the game.
Pressure moved to the mid lane now with Misfortune and Leona moving up there. Ricky's going to grab his blue buff as things get set up, trying to put some more pressure in the bot lane. They do manage to pick up one of the plates, but they don't have the ability to push out quite enough. They are going to be able to clear those minion waves. Oh, never mind. Akali is down there to greet them, so they're going to have to play really safe around that champion. Very powerful assassin. And now Gangplank is getting to the point where he can start putting down a lot more barrels, a lot more damage across the board, and wave flare. But Wujin's going to go in on him, gets a great trade. Zenith Blade, though, in the middle lane, finds out Red Hot, pins him down. There's nothing he can do. Does manage to drop the solar flare, but unfortunately too little too late.
And that is the ult down from Silas. Not necessarily the best time to use it, because it actually did not hit until he, it was post-death on him. Wujin, though, doing a great job against this Gangplank in the top lane, and that means that Simon Fraser is going to drop Shelly here in the mid, picking up almost all of the plates. The ultimate now coming out from Nunu, not going to be enough, in a stopwatch of the ages from this barbecue Leona. They're not going to be able to pick up that mid tower, and the Horn comes out. Does not hit anybody there, but Ricky is caught out. Ends up getting hooked by the Thresh. The ultimate coming down as well. Wujin taking so much damage in the meantime, though. Boise State did not manage to pick up a single elimination there. Ricky is just too tanky right now and does have the blue buff to give him a little bit extra there. Boise State losing another one in that fight.
And multiple teleports used as well to get players to this fight. Yes, they did manage to try and put a lot of pressure. Yeah, they got a lot of damage down, but they weren't able to convert any of that and ended up losing Silas as a result.
Now, though, Boise State has a little bit of an opportunity to set up some vision, and set up a potential play as this next dragon is coming to town soon.
And that's going to be an Infernal Drake, I believe we saw earlier. So there is an Ocean Drake currently taken by Simon Fraser, so we know neither of those are going to be the final play. It will be Clouder mounting for the final dragon. Dean now forced to flash over the wall. That ice pillar nearly cut him off. Any other situation, you would have wanted to run around the outside, but this Trundle has been such a menace.
Oh, yes. He has been. That's the reason likely he's stuck with the Trundle for a second game. His engages and ganks have really helped out. A good Zenith is going to be followed immediately by an ultimate from both the Leona and the Misfortune. It was an MF ult down just for one elimination there, and it was on to the Nunu, now sitting at 1-3-0. Simon Fraser at 11-1 in eliminations, just at about 13 minutes into this game. A little bit under 6K in their favor here. Boise State at least has not let that disparity grow. And that means that Simon Fraser manages to pick up that Drake. Trundle all on his lonesome there, and the Cloud wins quicken.
So Cloud Drake will be the last dragon, just like in the previous game. So those with powerful ultimate abilities with long cooldowns are going to love those. So that means things like the Ornn are going to be very happy to get access to those. especially Silas, who's going to be able to steal more ultimates from more people. Turret plating is going to fall soon. It looks like Simon Fraser is going to do their best to try and take one more plate here on this bot lane tower. They are going to get away from that team, not able to reach with that death sentence. So Simon Fraser doing a fantastic job now. Over 5K ahead, actually almost 7K ahead.
Big difference there. Boise State has dealt with worse, though. We saw, you know, a 6K differential in Simon Fraser's favor last round. Boise State still managed to take things home by pushing it out to the late game. Red Hots has had a lot of pressure once again. And we will see how the vision game plays out. Simon Fraser, as usual, has so much vision, and if they're not very far ahead, then they've got a ton of defensive vision. If they have been able to push towards an objective, it's generally a lot of aggressive. So we can see right now that they are all lined up in their own jungle. Boise State has a few wards in the standard locations there, and a few more defensive ones as they are used to getting taken from behind that tower in the bottom lane there.
It is important to note that Gangplank has finished Trinity Force. That's a huge power spike for that champion. Has the ability to clear waves so much faster and deal so much more damage with his parlay. Going to pick up a longsword as well, so he'll have that additional damage. Probably going to build that into something with either more crit or more cooldown reduction. We could see Essence Reaver, we could see Duskblade of Drakthar. There's now 3 members in the mid lane. Red Hots is caught out, manages to just barely dodge the Solar Flare, but doesn't dodge the Zenith Blade. Ricky is on the back line, able to pin this down in place. The elimination does go over to that Leona, however, rather than a carry. But a
4
kill is a
ultimates
kill.
came out on that one elimination. Every single champion there used their ult to get that, and it did go over to Leona, who is 3-0-7, mind you, right now, as a 300 gold bounty. That bottom lane in general just dominating, 6-0-5 on the Misfortune. Varus only has died the one time, though, thanks to Dean throwing himself in front of a lot of those Zenith Blades to protect him. He's got his Borg finished, and he's at least got, what he wants in terms of going forward here. Now he might be able to pick up the first tower for Boise State. It does appear he will do so. That's after Simon Fraser has picked up 2 towers, though, so do keep that in mind as the gold still increases in favor of Simon Fraser.
And there are big power spikes happening across the board. Akali has the Hextech Gunblade, and Misfortune has an Essence Reaver as well as another DF Sword that's probably going to build into an Infinity Edge. On the side of Boise State, however, what do they have? They have Sunfire Cape, a Luden's Echo, Blade of the Ruined King. Not a whole lot of big, powerful items, and their champions have been put so far behind, 12-1 on just the eliminations alone right now.
And that's definitely going to be more difficult for Boise State as the tanks on Simon Fraser's side get tankier. Leona 3-0-7 is now able to continue building armor here, as that has really been what is hurting, thanks to Silas in the mid lane getting shut down as hard as he has. The later fights are really going to affect things. Woojin with the capabilities of going in and getting some burn and taking some aggro here, and Nunu is going to follow up a great hook with a great snowball, but in return the Misfortune ult, the Nunu ultimate is going to come down, flash out from the Leona, means no damage is done. The ultimate from Woojin is going to pop up the Leona there, and Woojin is going to try sticking on this back line, but the GP ultimate forces multiple members there of Boise State both away and to their own demise. Now Dean, the only member of Boise State left alive, means Simon Fraser has free access to Shelly.
Boise State having a really difficult time. They engage on these fights, and it's great that they're able to do that, but you need to know where the opposing team is when you're setting up a fight. They engage on these fights, but unfortunately, because they don't know what's coming in, they engage in situations where they might not have enough members, or where the opposing team is in a really good position to be able to flank you or just drop on top of you once all of your abilities are down. And now they're going to lose the bot lane turret to Gangplank, and maybe even the top to Akali.
And the reason these kinds of plays were working so well for Simon Fraser in the past is because of the immense amount of vision that they had down. And that's exactly what you're talking about. They're going on these great engages that potentially would work well if they just had eyes on the last 1 or 2 members that they don't see. And it's almost as though they forget. They're like, oh crap, it's a Trundle there. We forgot that Trundle could have potentially jumped in. And that offers so much for the rest of the team there. We'll have to see what Red Hots decides to do with these ultimates coming up here, as well as this Dragon now being up and alive. They really don't want Simon Fraser to get that 3rd one.
Boise State needs to have control of that bot side, but unfortunately they're already giving it up. They do have vision in the area, but they're being chased out of their own jungle. Ricky now may have caught Can't Get Dopamine, flashes over the wall, manages to just barely avoid the Zenith Blade, but now all of the pressure is in Simon Fraser's favor. There's no way that Boise State is going to be able to close in on this Dragon.
Simon Fraser's favor. Boise State really trying to make everything that they can. We're getting closer to, 9, 10K difference here for Simon Fraser at less than 20 minutes in. It's a really rough spot to be. Boise State, though, did manage to find the upper hand after being behind so much of the last round that we saw. The only difference between these is there was at least some favorability going. We had Woojin doing relatively well in the top in terms of elimination. 16 versus 2 means everybody has just been shut down across the board.
The good news is that means there's a ton of bounties that can be claimed, and Boise State could potentially use those to get back in the game if they manage to find a good pick or a good team fight. You want to get those onto your carry champions, so you want to get those onto Gimmick and onto Red Hots. And they've been having such a hard time managing to find the damage that they need to close out these team fights.
I think it definitely would be huge if Gimmick was able to get a little bit of that gold, the poke that he's able to offer, and the fact that he's at a safe distance. Silas so many times has had such good engages and then just gets burned down so quickly. Looks like there's going to be a lot of pressure here. Shelly coming out to hit this mid lane tower, followed up by the ultimate from Misfortune. The Ornorn is going to come down though, and Call of the Forge God is going to shut down one member there. Silas finds out Misfortune, and that's a 700 gold bounty, and they're going to follow this one up with everything they have. Red Hots though going down the double kill, just so much damage coming out of this gangplank. Nunu going to ult there, and a great play from Woojin actually forced the Leona back into that ultimate there from Can't Get Dopamine. 2 members now of Simon Fraser alive, and they're still going to continue to put pressure here, as one of them is LF in the top lane on that GP. Has a lot of sustainability for himself.
Unlucky crit from that gangplank, dropping the barrels. You do so much damage when you do manage to land the barrels. Watching this, Gimmick just barely survives the Akali, does get the shutdown there, and another shutdown there onto the Misfortune by Red Hot. So they did get some shutdown gold from these fights, and that was important. But unfortunately, just look at how much damage Gangplank does at this stage in the game, now that he's got 2 big items. Good Zenith Blade Flame forces him back into the absolute zero, so great play there. They are able to get the shutdown, but it goes on to Dean, unfortunately. They're able to get away, just barely surviving that. They do have 3 members to 2, so it was overall a victory for Boise State, but they lost so much along the way.
I suppose, though, considering the situation and the gold differential and all of that, they could have lost a lot more. So, the small victories are sometimes the only victories you can get in situations like that. And that means it's a huge victory, in my opinion, right? Even though it may be considered small from a backward standpoint there, in that it really doesn't offer much to the game. Hey, they survived it, they didn't let another tower go down, and they did not give access to their base.
So Boise State, 10K behind, 4 towers behind, no dragons. A really difficult situation. They need to find some control on the map, take an objective, take a tower. At this point, Boise State needs to be talking with themselves and going, what is our goal? Where are we aiming for? They have tools to do it. They just need to find the target and go for it.
And I'm going to talk about it again, and I'm already thinking about, my report card here for the end, and in where I'm most disappointed, if you will, and that is, once again, vision. Boise State leaving their base. There's 3 or 4 wards on their side. They have not checked everywhere they need to. They do not have enough sweepers if they are not able to take down all of these wards. because Simon Fraser has been able to remove the majority of Boise State's vision there. And again, they're using that consistently both to be defensive and aggressive, and it's working out so incredibly well for them. Boise State really needs to focus on this.
I'm also worried about Boise State's threat with what they have in their draft. They have 3 great tanks, but unfortunately they don't have a lot of damage. They only have 2 members, one of whom is now getting caught out by Gangplank, putting down a lot of damage, but he's not able to do enough. A great crit from Gangplank is going to keep him alive and give him the gold from Gimmick. Now Simon Fraser has free reign over this Baron.
And he is very tempting as a target for 0-7, 700 gold bounty, the only one on his team that has not given a kill over to Boise State. But that does not mean you can jump behind 4 members to try to get him out. The Misfortune ultimate is going to follow this through, and oh my goodness, the Akali manages to jump a very good distance there to follow up. A great solar flare is going to hit 3 members. The Nunu ultimate coming down. He manages to grab the lantern last second there and keep himself alive. So only 1 member of Boise State went down in that fight. Boise State, once again, little victories, you know, but the problem here is now they're all going to have to recall, and we immediately know exactly where Simon Fraser's heading. Really not much that Boise State can do about this, aside from take this moment to put down vision and clear some out.
That's the 4th dragon now. Cloud Soul going over to Simon Fraser. That's going to give them additional movement speed, so they'll be able to roam much quicker. They'll get more ultimate cooldown reduction, which is terrifying for some of these champions that they have on their team. The Solar Flare combination with the bullet time from Misfortune has been ripping through Boise State. And this Gangplank now, such a terror at 4-0 and 8, still has that gold bounty, hasn't been shut down. Essence Reaver and now a BF sword picked up, possibly building that into Infinity Edge for even more crit.
He's got more CS than his Misfortune does at this point in the game, and that's including the roam that he has been able to offer for the team. So yes, he is a juicy target, but that also means that Simon Fraser can so easily use him as bait, because Boise State has fallen many times for that trick of trying to catch one out, especially someone that is doing very well that they want the shutdown on and leading them directly into the rest of the team.
Boise State looking around.
Sitting on a ward.
Sitting on a ward. Don't know it's there.
No, they don't. Thresh, the only one right here, right now, that's got the sweeper going. We really need to see a bit more of that. And Shimmy Yu manages to get out of the way of multiple skill shots there. Rujin Call, the Forge God, is going to hit a flash over the wall. Means that is a living Nunu, but bullet time coming through is going to lead to a double kill going over in favor of Akali right now. The ultimate stolen from Gangplank there. So Silas just trying to get any of the potential damage slow or even lane pressure that he could use from that. We're not even going to be able to get much from it, though, if Simon Fraser keeps pushing the way that they are. They have now the late game pressure, and Boise State has long enough cooldowns here on 2 members. The ultimate coming out from Silas is the Gangplank. Oh my goodness, the Zenith Blade back over the tower means Red Tots is actually going to pick up an elimination. In the meantime, Nunu goes down there, and 4 members of Simon Fraser are going to very quickly make their way out thanks to those extra drakes.
Boise State just does not have enough damage for these team fights. Simon Fraser now maybe even moving over to Baron. They have the vision, they have the control. If they want to, they even have the damage. Boise State now 3 members wandering through the mid lane. They've been caught out. Make It Rain drops and the pillar cuts off Dean. Isn't able to get away. Gimmick forced to back off, and now Red Hots and Gimmick are running for their lives towards the Dragon Pit.
I don't want to be that guy, but immediately Simon Fraser goes back into your jungle, and they sweep because they assume you've got vision. And they realize you don't have vision. They don't even have to move to a different bush. They're able to walk directly into that first bush just outside, so that if you maybe do decide to throw down vision, they'll be able to collapse on you. So that's the problem. When Boise State has had the opportunity to put down vision, they haven't. And when they don't, when it's really risky, they try to. And that's not the way that they're going to win this.
5 members of Simon Fraser on Baron now, going to have that Gangplank to be able to zone people out. And there's a lot of damage that they can put down on this Baron with the Misfortune, with the Trundle, with the Akali. So many tools for damage. Boise State having a hard time even just walking down their middle lane. There's nothing they can do to get to this Baron.
And not a lot of damage either was put onto the 3 members of Simon Fraser there that were taking that Baron. So there. They are going to recall. Probably got some items to build. Going to clear out a little bit of jungle instead of putting pressure. This should give Boise State the opportunity to do what I've been talking about and lay down vision. Please, lay down vision. Clear out vision in your own jungle. If you are dying in your own jungle, you're not seeing enough. That at the end of the day is how it's going. Either you're pushing yourself too far out without the rest of your team and not knowing where the enemy team is, and a lot of that has to do with vision in general. Simon Fraser, such a good job on vision, and I don't want to keep digging it in because it's in my opinion, it is what is leading to a lot of these very successful. I don't even want to call them ganks because we're far enough in the game that you're not getting ganked, but it's essentially a gank because you're getting collapsed on in your own jungle.
Yeah, vision completely wins or loses games, and Boise State right now is very far behind in the vision score. There are Baron minions now pushing into the bot side of the map. They don't know where their opponent is. They don't realize just how close they are to some of them, and are going to end up recalling. No, actually looks like Boise State is going to try and find the collapse. The Oranhorn comes out. Call of the Forge God hits one. The Solar Flare from Silas drops down as well. Trundle is in the back line, but they do manage to get the knockup. They're only hitting the tanky members. Can't get Dopamine, barely gets away with his life, and meanwhile a turret drops. Red Hots gets caught out in the bullet time, isn't able to do anything, and now Boise State is running for their lives.
All right, who's making these calls? Who's making these calls? We have 2 members in base on the other side, and yet Boise State is trying to run down and chase after a Trundle, a Misfortune, players that you just don't chase like that. A Leona, and a Solar Flare was really the only assistance that they had in an attempt to lose that. So unfortunately, Boise State's going to lose that one. Simon Fraser finding 2 out of 3 games here and going to take home the W, but a great game all around.
Really, I think that Trundle had so much of an impact on the game. Once he was released, cut off so many escapes, and many times just forced Boise State to fight. And when you're as far as behind as they were, and your Trundle is that far ahead, there's very little that you can do aside from expend a flash if you have it, or some sort of mobility ability, and Boise State just didn't have those tools.
And perfect pillars. I don't think I've ever seen pillars that consistently good to where somebody literally has to flash just to get around it. It's just so well placed. So really, really big props to the jungle there. All players, obviously, doing an incredible job. But that jungle, whew, we're gonna be preparing for the next fight against him.
So you guys were talking about how Olaf was scary and we're worried about Olaf. What was kind of the person who was the scary one this round?
I would say so. The Akali really did what was necessary there, and I mentioned how I was all right with the matchup, with the fact that Red Hots is going into an Akali. That's the toughest time he's ever had against an Akali, in my opinion. Possibly it might have been because his Yasuo was taken away at the beginning of the game, so they knew that he wasn't able to use that pocket pick that he loves against her. But it was a really tough match, and he does really well with the Silas. So I would say, thanks to the Trundle, probably still. I would say my overall MVP of the series for Simon Fraser would absolutely be that jungle. Just so much pressure everywhere. But Akali was very terrifying, that one.
There was so much pressure on Red Hots that I didn't think the Akali was bad. I thought the Akali did very well, and certainly the game score ends up reflecting that. But I really do think that the MVP has to go over to that jungler on the side of Simon Fraser. Really great with the Trundle, just had so much control over the flow of the game. And there is that meme that's going around, better jungle wins. Well, sometimes that really is the case. And no offense to Can't Get Dopamine, but this just isn't the role he's used to, and it's understandable that he's struggling in this situation.
And I think he had to, specifically, having to pick up against an Olaf and a Trundle, those are very aggressive champions, and if somebody's going to run with them as aggressively as they are, they're confident. They know how to play them. They've played them enough times that they have many strategies on this. And so he was put in a really difficult situation. He did really well with the Nunu this most recent game, though. I think Trundle just got that early jump. The GP as well. I do have to point out that game. Like, I don't know if he ran a perfect game, but before it ended, I definitely saw 0 on his health there. His crits, he stopped what we thought couldn't be stopped, Woojin on that Ornn, as well as he did. He just couldn't out-damage that GP. He couldn't out anything that GP.
Yeah.
But overall, great games. Boise State, clearly they have it in them. They can push up against this, and this just means we'll be stoked next time we play these guys because we love playing up against teams that just kind of outplayed us. And I think a lot of the communication and the cohesion in Simon Fraser is really strong right now and something that Boise State can learn from.
It was definitely a victory that Simon Fraser had to learn from, and definitely something that Boise State is going to be learning a lot from now as we have ended our 3 games. So well played by all the teams, by all players out there. So well done.
Yeah, great games. Final report card. Looks like we're doing great. So I think the only thing I would have to change, because I love the draft, you know? If anything, I'd probably raise my draft to a standard A. And vision control, I'm going to give him a C-. Vision control is huge for me. And when you learn the first game or two that may be a big reason you were losing fights, it has to change, and things didn't.
I'm also going to drop my vision control score to a C-, but I also want to add that for objective control, I can't give him any better than an F. I'm sorry, guys, but you lost so many towers. You lost all of the dragons. You lost all of the rift heralds. You lost all of the barons. You have to have more control over those objectives, especially when you have that objective control-based jungler. I do
think so. If anything, I'd change, my objective control to maybe like a B-. But I'm not going to give him anything like an F because I do think that objective control failure is due to the vision control failure. I wasn't going to go near Fs, but the vision control, if they could fix one thing that would actually help all of these, it would be vision control.
Absolutely, I agree.
All right, so I think I'm going to change mine to all A's, but A's for effort?
A's for effort. There you go. Hey, they have an A average from one teacher. That just means you'll be their favorite.
Exactly, yeah. I like to be the favorite teacher. I'm the cool teacher.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be, that is for sure. And if I were to check off any of these guys down here, the focus on in terms of what's working well and what's not, and sticking with it, the commitment. Because I feel like they had flashes of, we need to get more vision. And they would have a moment or two in the game where they did take control of it. But then they immediately gave it up, and it's as though they forgot that had anything to do with maybe why they were winning or losing fights. That's rough.
So we're going to get the schedule here for the MWC just released. So we're going to be up against Colorado State on the 25th, and that'll be our next big game for the Mountain Division. Top 2 teams will advance to Las Vegas on March 5th and 7th, 7th.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we definitely tried our best, and even though it didn't turn out on Boise State's side, I definitely had a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for League of Legends, and we will be back. Stick around after a break. Thanks.